Jay Crawford, Adam the Bull, Garrett Bush, and so many big names, it would take me hours to say all of their names. The ultimate Cleveland sports show. Booyah!
Uh-oh.
It is Thursday, and there's no Jason Lloyd.
Where is he?
He's on vacation.
What a slacker.
I know. And you know what? He was talking like for a month before he left. He was saying, I've got vacation. It starts when training camp begins, which kind of, to me, is a little bit of an odd week to take vacation.
Yeah.
But he was saying, my fear is the Watson news is going to break and blow up my vacation.
Oh, that's been my fear for weeks. Because I'm going on vacation next week, although it will
Hopefully
not
by then it'll be out. Hopefully
I hope
by
so.
then.
He's also with his family and kids, and it might be like, oh, thank God the Watson news broke, so now I have something to do for the next 2 days.
Yeah, that's true. And by now he could be looking for that break.
Exactly.
He's done with the family at this point.
We actually, and if anybody was wondering where Jason and the family are vacationing, we actually have a proof that he is on vacation.
Proof of life.
Can't take them anywhere. They're at Alabama, and that is his wife and kids. So from the left there, that's his wife, Alicia, and then AJ, Ava, and Alex. There seems to be an A version there in the family. But there they are, spelling out OHIO on the
enemy territory.
Alabama case. I love that. I absolutely love that.
And man, shout out to Jason. I'm so glad that you have reconciled with your wife. You guys are back together.
That's a terrible
and going
car.
to vacation destinations like the University of
After
Alabama.
you broke her trust
Just
like that.
rekindling, getting
The
back
fact
to
that
getting back to
reconnecting.
yes,
Oh,
getting
the
back
car. Do you think they drove the fancy car there?
being that man, being
better
the man
have.
she met.
Probably recommended by their marriage therapist,
Yeah.
I would imagine.
Yep.
Take her somewhere nice.
Take her somewhere nice. She deserves
Her
it.
name begins with an A. All your kids begin with an A. Go to Alabama.
Do you think he drove in his tiny little sports car in front of them and then she's in a minivan behind?
That's right. By the way,
I hope not.
Jason told me in September he's going to Montana. That's next.
Nice. Good for him.
All right.
He's hitting all the hot spots.
Try and find himself.
Yeah.
Hey, you know what? Get away. That's the idea.
that's true.
Get
And
away.
get back from Alabama safely.
Okay, let's quickly run through what's going to be on today's program. Aditi's going to be here later. That's going to be fun. We'll do a mailbag with her. So if you have any questions to Aditi, go ahead and put them out there on our social, and McNuggets will sift through them. We'll ask some questions of her. Jen Matthews is going to be here. We got to get her reaction to Pops missing the finalist list for the Hall of Fame from the seniors and coaches committee.
Yes.
And it's astoundingly, Clay's not on it, and Art Modell is. That's it.
She's going to have some strong feelings about that.
I'm sure she will.
For me, the theme today for this show is disrespect.
All right, great.
Yeah, it seems to be a common theme. You're right.
It's
You're
coming
right.
up. It's
As we
coming
look
down
at
the
this.
pipeline.
Yeah.
And also, I want to take just a second to remind everybody, if you haven't currently subscribed to our YouTube page, we really need you to do that, and here's why. If this Watson news breaks at 3:15, you're going to be stuck. Where do I go? My Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show fix can't be scratched. Yes, it can. Subscribe, click on notifications. The second this thing breaks, we're going to push it out there. We're going to assemble the crew. It's like the bat, the bat light, when they would shine the bat light.
Absolutely.
We're all going to convene
There's
wherever
a pole
we are.
back here that I'm going to slide down.
I want to see that. We're all going to convene, and we're going to immediately go on with our instant reaction to it.
That's right.
We'll digest it. We'll translate it for you. We'll probably have a legal expert tell us what all of this mumbo-jumbo means, because really, when you get down to it, this decision is going to be written in legalese. They often are. And Sue L. Robinson was a district judge for 25 years. That's the world she knows. So there may be some complications hidden in it. What does this mean? What does that mean? Hopefully we'll have a lawyer that will be with us, too, to break it all down. So subscribe
And we're 243
and notify.
subscribers away from 11,000. 243.
Which was our goal
that's
by
it.
the end of the month.
Yeah, we got
Yes,
a couple
and we
days.
got 4 days left in the month, so we got to get those final 243. Let's go.
Right, we've been pushing
us
about
over the
100 a
top.
day.
Yeah.
So we're really on pace to hit this.
Yep.
But we
Yes.
don't want it to be close. So anyhow,
Please
if you
don't
want to
make
be
me-
informed,
Please
go.
don't make me start 11 last-minute accounts to try and push us over the edge. That's embarrassing. I'll run out of names.
How many do you have already?
Oh, 17, 18.
Yeah, they're hard
something
to
like
keep
that.
track of.
And they all love all of my work.
All right, let's dive in. We're going to start with the news of the day. And really, day one from training camp yesterday, it was such a letdown for me. Because as I mentioned, it's kind of my new year. I wished everybody a happy new year. The rains came. They moved it inside. It was really kind of a glorified workout, what they went through. They went through some run-throughs, walk-throughs, some conditioning drills.
Yeah.
But that's not what I was looking for. And I know the fans were disappointed because today's workout closed to the public. So
Right.
now we've got to wait even longer after the 2-year wait because of COVID. I would ask you guys for your reactions from day one, but there really wasn't much to talk about.
I do think there is, Jay.
What stands out to you?
Well, what stands out to me, we talked about this briefly yesterday, is Deshaun Watson not speaking. And I was very disappointed in that. I thought about it more last night. And, yesterday we talked about, you and I, both said, hey, you can move on, talk about the, just the on-the-field stuff. But, I was thinking about it because since the last time he spoke, the only thing off the field that has changed is that he settled the 20 cases.
Right.
So there's definitely going to be somebody that wants to, multiple people that want to ask him, well, why did you said you weren't going to settle? You said you wanted to take it to court. Why did you settle? If I were him, I would have wanted. Now, maybe he didn't want to talk. Maybe the Browns didn't want him to talk. Maybe they just want to wait till this is decided before they do that. But he is eventually going to be and must be the face of this franchise.
Right.
And I think the face of the franchise should speak on the first day of training camp. I think it's important to show his leadership, his command of the team. And I think it's disappointing that he didn't talk. I'm not killing him for it, but I think it's disappointing.
It's likely it wasn't his decision.
But you know what? He should have said to the Browns, no, I'm going to go talk.
But I think I disagree. And I do think that I think the problem is that we are at the tail end of this, hopefully. And I think that anything that he goes out there and says right now, Sue Robinson's watching and the NFL is watching, and he just wants to keep his head down and not say anything to try and look like he's maybe trying to move the deal one way or the other by saying, well, if he goes out there now and starts somebody's going to ask him a question. Somebody's going to ask him a question about his legal situation. Nobody's, the media, they're not going to be good and just be like, so who do you see being your weapon in the slot this year? Nobody cares. They want to talk about this, and even if you try and put a moratorium on it, they're still going to talk about this. And so it's going to force him to address it, and I don't think he wants to get on record as saying anything else right now. I think it's like the smart thing to do.
I think you're right. You are right in most of what you said. The one thing I would disagree with is that nobody cares. See, I think everybody cares about football.
Right.
A lot of the media members
and that's the problem.
Don't care.
Whatever we say, they will conflate anything.
Right.
You know what I mean?
That's true.
So we're going to mince every word. Right now, we're going to be trying to dig for the next 30 minutes to find something that happened while they were lifting weights yesterday to talk about.
No, he's right.
If he would have said something that would be all that would have dominated the headlines, and they don't want him dominating the headlines any more than he has.
And I think you're both right. They're not mutually exclusive. People care.
Yeah.
I think the national media is in.
Yes.
They don't care about the
football.
slot receiver.
Yeah.
They want to hear him talk about the whole case. They want to hear where he is, what his thoughts are.
Yeah.
Because there hasn't been any availability since the cases were settled, I'm sure people want to talk to him about that. At 11:15, McNuggets, the players today, they haven't told us yet who's available. On today's sheet, it just says that select players.
Right.
They're going to talk at 11:15. Obviously, Stefanski will talk at 1:30, as he will every
Offensive
day.
lineman. That's what that means.
Yeah.
Joel Bitonio.
I'm curious to see. I'm curious to see who they trot out today.
I bet it's Joel Bitonio. I'm going to predict Bitonio, Amari Cooper, and
Maybe
I'll go
Njoku.
I'll go Njoku
because
one guy on defense. You need a defensive guy. 2 offensive
Yeah.
guys.
John Johnson.
That's
John Johnson. There you
that's
go.
your list for the day. They'll have some.
Well, they don't. There is no list. It just says select
Yeah.
players.
No.
I want to
unfortunately.
hear what Cade
Mike
York
does,
has to
listen,
say.
Mike does make a good point that anything he says on the off-the-field stuff can be maybe used against him potentially. I really want to hear him talk about football. I think the majority of our fans want to hear him talk about football, but ultimately you are correct. He's not going to get a ton of football questions.
Right. For me, the national media, they do this stuff and they get mad when you don't give them what they want. We want our pound of flesh. We want you to stand and answer our questions because we deserve it. Well, listen, let me ask you a couple questions yourself, media. Did you go find Roger Goodell? Has Roger Goodell given any comments?
No.
Well, he's part of the situation, so why we not asking him no
Camp
questions?
out outside his house.
They
They did. Well, Roger Goodell spoke actually in the last
when he
few
had
weeks.
to speak
It
at the
was-
Super
the
Bowl
Super
news
Bowl.
conference,
He was
when
asked
he was
about it.
available. He was asked about it, but
Yeah.
in
That was
terms
years
of
ago.
making himself available, you're right. A
That was
lot's
years
happened
ago.
since then.
Yeah.
In terms of making himself available specifically for this, not a chance.
I don't
Won't
think
happen.
it's unreasonable to ask him, why did you settle these cases when you said you weren't going to? That's not an unfair question.
So, well, here's the thing.
Yeah.
The reason I'm not going to answer that question is because I got an ongoing investigation. That could get me.
Well, then he could say that.
Well,
Yeah.
they
And he
know-
has said that in the past.
And then it's like
They
Deshaun
know-
Watson refuses to
And by
comment.
the way,
They know that.
G. Bush, he
They
can
know
use
that.
he can use that as an umbrella all the way through the season because he still has 4 civil cases
got ongoing
that are going to
investigation. I
litigation
can-
next year.
I can talk about, and they know that. See, reporters. At what point? I'm not really a journalist. I'm an opinion guy. At what point, as a journalist, do you say he's already told us he's not going to say nothing? So why would I waste my gas money to drive or fly to Cleveland to ask Deshaun Watson a question you know he's not going to answer? My thing would be
Because your editor's sending you there.
Right, there it is, right?
They're the ones that
Yep.
want it.
They
They
want-
know that that's going to move the media.
That's the only thing that matters. They want something to move the needle. And so what you do is don't give them any fuel. I'm not moving nothing. I'm playing football right now. If it don't got nothing to do with football, I'm not saying nothing.
And I'm
There's a
okay
lot-
with that.
And there are a lot of things football-wise that I would like. Deshaun Watson hasn't talked much about football.
No.
I want to know what his relationship with Amari Cooper's like right now. I want to know how the young wide receivers are developing with him right now. I want to know how excited are you to play behind an offensive line that's actually going to protect you for once?
Yeah.
How excited are you to have 2 guys in the backfield that are a million times better than anybody you've ever played with before?
Yeah, all those are great questions. We all want those answers.
Right, but
G.
they're
Bush,
not
to
gonna
your
happen.
point, I was kind of in that between space. I've always considered myself a show host. I don't call myself a journalist. Journalists go dig for stories. I've never really done that, but I've always been lumped in with the media. I consider myself part of the media for sure. But one of the most grotesque exercises in journalism I've ever seen was when Tiger Woods was forced. He was forced to go before hundreds of cameras, hundreds of journalists, and answer questions about what happened on the night that he wrecked his vehicle, which was really over a personal relationship with his wife.
Crazy, bro.
And they brought him out there, and I was hosting the program that had to throw it to his news conference.
Yeah.
And it was like a group of crazed, starved wolves.
The tournament forced him to do that?
Everybody did. His sponsors forced him to do it.
Okay.
The PGA was encouraging him to do it. He didn't want to do it. Who would want to go out there and say, so I got a late night tweet from my girlfriend. My wife saw it. She hit me with a golf club. I was under the influence of sleeping meds. I got behind the wheel of my car. I crashed my car.
Yeah.
Who would want to go? Why would anybody have to talk
But
about
ultimately,
that?
he could have said no. It would have cost him
Bull,
money.
he tried. There was so much internal pressure that eventually his agent even said, we got to do this. Every sponsor, remember, Nike, all of them, were pulling back. We're currently pausing our relationship with Tiger Woods. And Tiger was between that rock and the hard place that no one wants to be. And I'll never forget how cringeworthy it was watching this grown man who had clearly made mistakes that would affect the trajectory of the rest of his life, because he was about to go through a divorce. He wasn't going to have his kids in his house every day. This was a man going through all kinds of pain. And in a sick way, the media at the time was loving it.
Yeah, of course.
They threw him in the frying pan. They turned the heat on high, and they sat back and watched him sizzle. And it was awful.
And watch this, because they can't get Deshaun Watson to come out and say what they want him to say, they're angry, they're upset. When we take a look at some of these polls we got, right, they not only are mad at that, they'll go a step further. They'll diminish what you've done with other people. Well, I got the Browns going this. I think the Browns are going to win 3 games. It's just
that could be confirmation bias.
It's a trickle down theory.
Yeah. Well, listen, there was something else interesting related to Deshaun Watson, I thought, from yesterday. We talked about it briefly. Myles Garrett had some comments about Deshaun Watson yesterday that I thought, and Leroy Hoard spoke to this as well, and I think this is really important. Myles Garrett has nothing to do with Jacoby. I believe in his ability, but I'm putting the pressure on us because I know what we have in store. And it brings up a good point that we as media members, right, as opinion guys or whatever, we can say the obvious, that if Deshaun plays 17 games versus Jacoby playing 17 games or even 8 games, that the Browns are probably going to win less games. How many less is debatable, but they're going to win less. Deshaun Watson's a significantly better quarterback than Jacoby Brissett. But as players, as leaders, as coaches, Kevin Stefanski, the coordinators, the leaders of this team, Myles Garrett, Nick Chubb, Joel Bitonio, whoever, the guy's getting paid a lot of money, and all those guys, Denzel Ward, are getting paid a lot of money.
Right.
There's no excuses for them.
Absolutely.
Right? This is not a – if Jacoby Brissett plays 4 games, 8 games, 17 games, we understand, rationally from us that the team won't be quite as good. But they shouldn't be terrible because they got a great roster. If a team with a bad roster loses a good quarterback, I expect them to win 2 games.
Right.
The Browns have one of the best rosters in football. They're not going to be as good with Brissett, but they still shouldn't be terrible. They still should be competitive, and at the very least, I think win 7-8 games with Jacoby Brissett. At the very least,
if he's here for the year.
Right, for the year.
Okay,
for the year.
Right.
But there is no excuse for anybody to have their head down or do a woe is me.
No.
They've got to play to the best of their ability, whether he's there or not.
I thought Leroy was crystal clear on that yesterday, rock solid strong. You've been saying that throughout. It doesn't matter, particularly for the defense. Like Leroy's point was, what difference does it make to Myles Garrett, who our quarterback is? They're not on the field at the same time. Now, there may be added pressure on them because they know they're not going to put up 30 points a game.
Right.
So I think the line gets a lot smaller of what, teams will say, when I covered the Bucs when they had all defense before they got over the hump offensively and won the Super Bowl.
Right.
And the defensive guys would always say, they would embrace it. We know we got to hold them to single digits if we're going to win. And that was their mission. And Warren Sapp said, guess what? We want to try to do that every game, no matter who's on offense.
That's right. Yeah. Myles Garrett said something very similar. He said, there you go. It doesn't change regardless how that situation works itself out, and we're going to hold ourselves to a higher standard no matter what happens, and our defense is going to do what we do. Last time I heard, they can't win if they don't score points.
Yeah. It's about time somebody took – remember the thing, disrespect. Every single time the Steelers get a new quarterback or something happens, they give them, the people jump out of the closet to say, well, it's the Steelers' pedigree. It's the Steelers and Mike Tomlin. They just will themselves to victory. It's about time.
And they haven't won a playoff game in 6 years.
It's about time the Cleveland Browns start saying this. They disrespect you. You got Pro Bowlers all over the field. They reduced you down to a quarterback that wasn't here last year. This is crazy. It happens all the time. If it's Bill Belichick, you guys need to get rid of Josh Gordon. Bill Belichick gets Josh Gordon? Great job, Bill Belichick.
Brilliant strategy.
Brilliant. These dudes do this to you every single time. The Browns going to have to look in the mirror and say, look, we got to come take the respect. It happens across the board. If you look at this team, there's no way you can look from top to bottom and look at from position group to position group, and they tell you, yeah, you guys got Nick Chubb, great guy. Myles Garrett might be Defensive Player of the Year. Hey, Denzel Ward, you got the best offensive line. But yet and still, when it comes down to the wash and it gets rinsed out, all of a sudden, you got 5 or 6 wins. That's disrespect.
I don't think. First of all, I will say I think that the one guy that picked them to go 6-11. We'll get to that in a second.
Right.
I think that's an anomaly. I don't think it's impossible that they can finish 6-11 if Deshaun Watson didn't play the whole season. I don't think that's crazy. I think that's an extreme prediction. I think that's like the worst case scenario prediction. And I would never make a prediction based on the worst case scenario. But I don't think everybody is in Vegas. The Browns have pretty good odds to win the division still.
Yeah.
I want to say one thing about that Myles Garrett thing, which, again, nothing happened yesterday. Everybody, just breaking news, nothing happened yesterday for the most part. But I did like seeing Myles Garrett step up and take more of that role, and I think he's been doing that more and more as time goes on. I remember his first year here, for as giant as he was kind of like a quiet kid in the back of the room still. He was learning like you're supposed to and whatnot. He didn't have that leadership role, but watching him grow into that, and you need somebody obviously like that, and I like seeing him take on that role. But it's also what I'm scared of when they talk about media trying to catch people in these kind of situations that might not even necessarily mean anything. I saw somebody saying that he was calling out his fellow defense and challenging them. They're like, Myles essentially said to step up to the defense, and now. See, and that's what we're just like. Can we find something in there?
That?
Can we find something? I saw a couple of different tweets. But I did see a couple of different tweets about that. And
that's ridiculous.
I know
Well,
they're
it's
just
divisive, and oftentimes that's what they try to do.
They're just poking the bear and
And by the way, though, there was a post game last year that Myles Garrett did call out the defense, including himself.
Yeah,
that's fine.
And
that's
they kicked ass the following week.
And by the way, it was warranted. And
Yes.
So I was thinking yesterday when we were kind of talking about leadership and how this team, they don't have a Ray Lewis. They don't have a Drew Brees. When you look at the three most integral parts of this team, and I'm not going to put Deshaun Watson into this group yet because he hasn't taken a snap yet for the Browns.
Right.
But I think everybody on this panel would agree that the three faces of this franchise right now, minus Deshaun, Kevin Stefanski, Nick Chubb, Myles Garrett, they're all the same guy.
And only one of them talks, really, is Myles Garrett.
Yeah, and Myles at least does, but Nick doesn't say anything, rarely does interviews.
Right.
Kevin talks to the media because he has to.
He says words.
But he talks around a circle, and when you're done, you're like, wow, that was word salad. He just
Uh-huh.
talked for a minute, and I don't have a note written down. I don't know what he said. So
Myles Garrett gives you more in interviews.
Myles is easily the best of those three.
Yeah.
But they always say that a team takes on the personality of its head coach.
Right.
And I think when Freddie was here,
Yeah.
it was kind of a frat room
Yeah.
feel to it.
Yep.
And then all of a sudden, Stefanski came in, and it felt a lot more corporate and boardroom, and I'm okay with that.
Yep.
I'm okay with that.
I love boring.
I think, Jay, even if you look at some of the other leaders who are not as obvious as those guys, like Joel Bitonio, Denzel Ward, even Anthony Walker at linebacker, those guys are all kind of the similar mode as well. They're not like crazy guys or like. And those guys need to lead the way, because in their position group, whatever. I think Denzel Ward does a great job. So does Anthony Walker. I think they got a leader at every level of the defense.
I agree.
Eventually it needs to be the quarterback. The quarterback's the commander of the team.
And
You're
by the way, I think Deshaun will assume that role once he's here and established his presence. He's not going to do that yet, clearly.
Here's what we know. We know that, or what I think we know, is that Jacoby Brissett is... We've talked about this before. He knows who he is. He's not going to try to chuck it down the field and be a superstar.
He's a check-down quarterback.
He's a check-down quarterback. He's going to get you the ball and let you. You're the stars.
Yeah.
You're Nick Chubb. You're Kareem Hunt. You're Amari Cooper. David Njoku. Whatever. He's going to let you make the plays. He's not going to make some terrible turnovers. Everybody has some. He's not going to make egregious mistakes for the most part.
He's not going to try to be a hero.
Right. So he's not going to kill you. Now, he's not going to win games for you. Deshaun Watson will win games for you.
Yeah.
I don't think Jacoby Brissett is winning games for you, but he's not losing games for you. And last year, again, 2 years ago, Baker helped him win. Last year, he lost them some games.
He hurt them for sure.
Yes.
Before we move on from training camp, because we want to talk about that 6-11 prediction. That's next. I do think that we should at least read these. These were the names yesterday, the guys that did not participate. David Bell, we knew, a foot.
Yeah.
From all indications, it's nothing serious. He's going to be fine. I know that. I think you were super nervous about it.
I was.
Yeah.
I think everybody was like, we're good with receivers. He's going to be fine. Jack Conklin has a knee that he's nursing.
He was expected to take some time.
They knew he was going to be out. Sheldon Day back. Anthony Walker Jr. Is dealing with a groin. Denzel Ward foot. That's the one.
Panic mode.
That's what. Okay.
Straight up panic
I
mode.
was you too. And yesterday, Jimmy told us at 5 o'clock. Jim Donovan told us that he's in a boot.
Yeah, I saw that.
And I'm sure it's precautionary, whenever I see my guy in a boot,
There's two things here. There's two things. I go back to receiver. I'm telling you, I don't like it. I don't like the depth of receiver. I just don't. If you got Jacoby Brissett, we talk about what you need to put around him. You're going to have guys playing at the optimum level, right? You're going to have guys playing ready to go because he's not Deshaun Watson. I don't feel comfortable coming out there with Anthony Schwartz, who I saw nothing from last year. I didn't see anything for Donovan Peoples-Jones. Now, I like the potential and all that. Great. But those are your two top. Those two top guys. And David Bell, the guy that you count
a lot
on.
of unproven there. A lot of unproven.
You count on him? He's a third-round pick. And you talk about he's going to be gone at least this week.
Yeah.
So
we've already slotted him in to replace.
And we were talking about Julio Jones the other day. Sorry to cut you off,
okay.
but he just signed with the Buccaneers.
He's off the market. Yeah, he's off the market. And I don't like.
But I love that we're already like, and then David Bell will just be the new Jarvis Landry, and we're done.
Yeah, right.
It's not that easy.
You're right.
They put him right in there.
They put him right in the Pro Bowl. I'm like, wow, bro.
David Bell's like, I'm pretty slow. Did you guys read that?
And he was like, I did.
You know,
people said Peter hasn't dropped the football yet.
Right.
And he was like, I actually did drop a football. It was in rookie mini camps. I just want to let you guys know. I did do that.
By the way, Stefanski was asked yesterday, hey, because not only is David Bell, out right now, there's another camp guy or some other wide receiver further down the depth chart, I can't think of his name, who's also out. And they asked him specifically, are you guys thinking about bringing in a wide receiver? He said, no. Now, he's the type of guy that they could be, and he's just not going to admit that.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. One guy that we were talking about the leadership before we move on, that could become a vocal leader on this team, but his play has to, obviously, he has to be a proven commodity. But I thought Perion Winfrey at his new, with his interviews after he was drafted, his jersey is selling, which is kind of odd.
That video,
exactly. I mean, what is it? Yeah. He gets us.
100%.
He gets us. Yeah. And because of that, I think fans will be really quick to try to sink their teeth into him. So if he comes on early, has a couple of sacks, plays well, he is going to be the kind of guy that with an arm gesture can get the whole stadium on their feet.
Because of our beloved fan base, a certain contingent of our beloved fan base, whom I love. If I were a Cleveland Browns player, and I wanted to sell some jerseys, I would honestly just show up at a couple of Cavs games, open a beer with my mouth, with my teeth, and then just chug it.
Talk about Big Chuck and Little John.
Talk about Big Chuck and Little John, and the next thing you know, your jersey sales skyrocket.
You're absolutely right.
We are so susceptible to that.
I will say this though. Hopefully Perion Winfrey can get this thing together, because I'm gonna tell you what. I'll give you your heyday when the Browns were rocking and rolling. You was at the old Municipal Stadium.
I was.
Hey, that place was a nightmare to come play in.
It was.
First Energy ain't nothing like that.
It's never even approached
It
that.
ain't even. Yeah. It's not even as. It's the most comfortable venue I've ever been in. You can bring your kids. You can bring your grandmother.
I've been to weddings there.
People just.
I have. I've literally been to weddings there.
There was a church sermon right there at halftime, and these people is comfortable. Y'all better do something to get back. Get that back going.
Well, you know what would help that is a long winning streak.
There you go.
Win. We have a couple of years where you make the playoffs and you go deep in the playoffs. Can you imagine what a playoff game in that building would be like?
Nuts.
Man, that would bring it up into the Municipal Stadium, at least the fringe of Municipal
Stadium. And bring
those
freaks back in. All the dudes with masks, train it off. Listen,
the welders.
Listen, give me dog pound
I'm not
section.
going, but let's get those people.
Dog pound section. We going to give them people in the dog pound half off. Come on in here and get loose.
We really should, at some point, have my father come in here and sit in with us and tell us stories of, the dog pound and tailgating back in the day.
He's just great.
He's like,
nuts.
The year was 1988.
Epic.
That's how it starts.
I brought a acetylene torch to the game. I wanted to go home with the seat.
He has so many hilarious stories like that he would not be able to deliver effectively on camera, and he'd embarrass me in front of all of us. But if you get him alone with a half a bottle of Irish whiskey and he doesn't think anyone's watching him, I'll start recording them.
You know what? Surreptitiously record them. Get one of those stories and we'll run it.
Yeah.
All right, McNuggets, Steve, let's go to the predictions from the USA Today. So
it's one guy.
It's one guy, and what he did was he played out the entire season. So we always joke what a ridiculous exercise that is. Well, they're going to win this one, they're going to lose 2 in a row, then they're going to come back and win 3 in a row. He's got the Browns last place in the North at 6-11, which is, to your point, Bull, it could happen. But what jumps out to me is there are only 5 teams that he has predicted to win fewer games than the Browns.
It's crazy.
And only 3 in the AFC, the Jets, the Texans, and the Jaguars. That's it.
So apparently the Browns are and
Jaguars
and you did mention it was worst case scenario.
Yeah,
and
I don't know
Nate
about
Davis-
you guys, but when somebody asks me for predictions of a season, right? It's a silly.
It is.
Mike's talked about it. It's silly. But if I'm going to do it, what I do in my mind is I say, okay, obviously there's extremes. Like if everything goes perfect, everything goes terrible. I think the worst case scenario for the Browns is 6-11. Like it's possible they could finish 6-11 if Watson didn't play the whole season and everything went wrong.
Right.
But that's the extreme, right? I look at it and I say, if they played the season 100 times, which scenario would play out the most?
Right.
And that's how I think you make predictions. But, it's obviously, I assume the guy's assuming that Deshaun Watson's not going to play at all.
Think. I mean,
His
you would think.
methodology would be interesting to see.
Yeah, I'd be curious.
We've
about
been seeing this all year, though. That's not isolated. There was another poll we just did when you talked about the offense, right?
Yeah.
If you had to rank the offense from, in the division, the Browns would be, you had them all the way down there 13th, 14th, when they got the best running backs and the best offensive linemen in the game. So my thought process is, you've seen this when they put Najee Harris above Nick Chubb. Every single time I turn it on, and it's just the facts, there's a lot of people, including people with pens, that don't like Deshaun Watson and don't like the situation. So that situation has bled into everything. Now you 6 wins. How can you say the Texans made the move, right? But they only 3 games better than the Browns?
Well, let me ask you this, though, G. Bush, because I don't know that it's so much that they don't like him. It's that we don't know
if he's going to play.
Nobody knows what the situation is going to be.
If you say 8 games, even if you say 6 games, there is no way, and you know what? The disrespect is the simple fact that you got players in the top 3 positions.
But you got to earn that respect. And as a team, the Browns haven't earned that respect.
But no, hold on. That's not false. That's false. You got the Pittsburgh Steelers winning 9 games. They got Mitch Trubisky and a rookie. Mm-hmm. And they 9 games.
Well, but I think he's wrong about that too. But I don't care. I mean, I get worked up about plenty of stuff. But some random dude at USA Today picking them to win 6
watch
games.
this, Bull.
Yeah.
Guess what?
Yeah.
We're gonna talk to Jen later, right?
Right.
Clay Matthews ain't in the Hall of Fame. Why you think it is? If he had a Steelers jersey, he'd be in the Hall of Fame.
Well, because he'd have the number of Super Bowls under his belt.
I don't agree with that, Toll. I don't know about that.
No, I'm asking you.
Winning factors in.
Well, if he was with the Steelers, though, he would have won Super Bowls, and that would.
Right.
What keeps Clay out is he never played in a Super Bowl.
Gee, the Bengals got 2 guys in this final cut, Ken Anderson and Ken Riley. It's not like they have a following or that people love the Bengals.
Here's the thing. You can't take an isolated incident, right? But when you look at the totality of it, the Cleveland Browns are always, you guys are a dumpster fire. You guys messed it up.
But that's true. Has been true for the most
but
part.
here's the thing. But you can't have it both ways. You can't say, hey, we want continuity. We want you guys to get aggressive. We want you to guys go out and go for it. They go for it. The Cleveland Browns have messed up their career. They just want
to Bull's point, they want to see it. I think, and I'm okay with that. You've got to prove that you are who everyone thinks you are. Last year, and you know what? They might use that internally for motivation in the locker room. They probably will because they're seeing the same thing.
Let him be disrespected.
But here's the thing. Last year, who picked the Bengals to win the division?
Nobody.
Who picked the Bengals to go to the Super Bowl?
And this is what I'm talking about.
The picks don't matter.
This is why I think that I actually like that we're being,
overlooked.
I do.
Yeah.
And, for example, I think we have this ready. Do you guys remember this image from just a couple years back? Is that ready, Mike? Right,
yeah, we're pulling up 1 sec.
Okay, never mind. This is just from a couple of years ago when we were going into this season. Remember that? The Browns are back, everybody.
Yeah.
We got a little bit of heat. We got a little overhyped. And we got all excited, and both those guys are gone. And I hated when this came out.
Yeah.
Because I hate whenever we get hyped up because it's a hard thing.
It's like when they put the Indians on the Sports Illustrated cover in like 1989. Corey Snyder, Joe Carter, they lost 100
Bring
games.
on as many of these 6-11 predictions as possible. Let the locker room see it. Get the bar nice and low for these Browns, especially this young team who needs to build up their confidence and stuff like that, and feel disrespected in order to get to a place that lets them
It just gives you ability to do more I told you so's if the team does
right.
well.
And if they happen to be right, and it's like, well, yeah, you guys kind of called that.
By the way, for the 2019 Browns, I went to training camp. I interviewed a bunch of fans and stuff, and I made a 3-minute hype video for that season. Mm-hmm. I mean, it was crazy over the top.
Yeah, of course. Everybody was loving it.
Well, at some point in time, if you're gonna be a good team, it don't matter what somebody's saying. You got to go out and prove it. You got to go out and do
100%.
So it don't matter if somebody say you good or you bad. You got to prove it. I like the fact that Myles Garrett is saying, look, we're going to be a top 5, top 3, number 1 defense, right? And I want to see them 20 sacks. I need Jadeveon Clowney to get them 12 sacks. I need people to take that next step. Grant Delpit, JOK. But the reality is, I'm just letting you guys know out there. The fans, the media always thought you was trash. They laugh at you.
That's true.
They laugh at you.
That's true.
You're a laughing stock. Don't take nobody telling you how you should move when they laugh at you. Go out, get the best players you can, and when Deshaun Watson puts 50 on the Steelers, I don't want to hear nothing. Get all in the DMs and the comments. Get it ready, because that's what y'all need to understand.
I do agree that they love crapping on the Browns in Cleveland, in national media. There's no doubt.
Cleveland, period.
Cleveland,
I mean,
yes.
Trust me, I saw it firsthand because I always felt like I was behind enemy lines. It was unbelievable. The criticism, the jokes, the punching bag that I felt like for 16 years.
Which was unfair to the city. The Browns deserved it for a lot of that time as an organization.
That's a good point. The Browns did deserve it.
Yeah.
They
The
did,
city
but the
didn't
fan
deserve
base,
it. No.
you know, I always take exception to shots at the fan base.
Right.
What the hell have we done except for support this trash for years and years
Maybe
and
that's
decades
the point,
and decades?
Maybe that's for some of them. That's probably the point.
Well,
It's like,
fan
what's
is
wrong
short
with
for
these people
fanatic.
that they keep. What's wrong with these people that keep supporting this team with these owners that keep doing this to them and all this? I mean, what's it take? It's almost
gluttons
like
for punishment.
And to all your points, like the national media has crapped on the Lions as well, but they don't crap on Detroit.
No.
They crap on the Jaguars.
Well, Detroit's won though. The Tigers won in the '80s. The
Right,
Tigers
but
have been to World
you don't
Series.
rip the city
the Pistons
for it.
won. No, I know.
And
it's not fair.
the
It's a
Indians
joke.
/ Guardians have overall been a good organization for the last 30 some odd
Didn't
years.
help that our river was on fire either.
Whatever.
I know that has nothing
you
to
could
do
point
with
to
sports.
anything
Bit
in
of a
any
PR
city.
Well, that's when Cleveland became the butt of jokes nationally. Forget the sports scene.
that's when Johnny Carson started coming after us.
Yeah, with both. With both
Mike, I'm going to
fists.
tell you what. You know this. Mike, you know this. I'm going to keep it real. That's why if they get to the Super Bowl and win, like you don't.
You
can't-
shut everybody up.
Like every single person in this city, I don't care if you black, white, Asian, Christian, Islam, it don't matter. Every single person in this city will be damn near in tears because you took all of that crap.
And you know what will
couldn't wear
happen
your
then?
stuff.
And this makes me sick. The national media then will go, good for Cleveland. We've been pulling for them for so long.
No, you
the
haven't.
lovable losers. And they'll come in and they'll put the parade on TV and they'll smile all through
It's
it.
something we've all been waiting for.
Yeah, sure you have.
Well, not everybody's a hater, but there are
No,
plenty.
I know, but
There are
in
plenty.
general, and I hate to paint everybody with a broad
Right,
brush.
yeah.
See, I think it saves time.
There were.
Hey, Mad Dog Russo recently said Cleveland was the best sports city in
He did.
America.
He did. Fans. Had the best fans.
Best fans in America.
Okay,
By
so
the way,
we-
go ahead.
We got to put a bow on this because
Yeah.
we've got guests waiting in the portal here.
Will
Will they make the playoffs if Deshaun Watson doesn't play at least 8 games?
No.
No.
No, he got to play 8 games. I like the rah-rah stuff, but he still got to play.
I like Jacoby, but
Don't get me.
there's too many good quarterbacks in the AFC.
Jay, you think they can win 14, I assume?
And that's why the Steelers aren't.
I'm a realist.
And that's why the Steelers aren't making the playoffs.
17-0, then the Super Bowl. No.
By the way, the Steelers haven't won a playoff game against a decent quarterback in about a decade.
Yeah.
I don't know. I can't.
And they haven't won a playoff game, period, in 6 years.
A decade's a long time. They've won a lot of games. I'm sure they've beaten some good quarterbacks.
Not in the last decade.
That's a.
gonna find it.
I'll guarantee you in the last 10 years they've beaten a good quarterback.
In the
could ask
playoffs. In the
Aditi.
playoffs.
Oh, in the playoffs.
yeah,
In the playoffs,
Yeah,
no.
we could ask
Let's
Aditi.
ask
Who
Aditi.
might know is
Yeah,
Aditi.
she's here.
Aditi joins us now via the
Yeah.
Gridiron Guys hotline. Are you looking for a local roofer you can trust? Family owned
Am
since
I?
2003, the Gridiron Guys have grown to become Northeast Ohio's top-rated roofers.
Get ready.
They exemplify quality work practices and are a valued resource for homeowners and offer a 10-year workmanship warranty. Call 330-573-7967 today for a free estimate or roof inspection.
Gridiron guys.
Oh, I like that.
I did some
Two-part
harmony.
harmony.
We
I like
got,
that. That's good.
listen, we got the harmony popping.
Yeah.
Hey, Gridiron, hit me up. You your boy over here. I got it. We can put that
No,
in.
I
like
I
it.
feel now we
Earth, Wind,
we
and
I like
apply
the
some
Mike
beatbox
chime in.
to
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
I love it.
That's him here.
You can add a little humming. We got
Aditi, did you know Bull was such a musician in all your time?
She had
working
no
with him on the
idea.
radio?
No, all the years that I've known him, I did not know that. But Bull, I'm
Yeah.
about to come on. We're about to talk, and you're checking your phone.
Well,
How is that
no,
supposed to
He's
make
trying
me
to
feel?
back up his
I
statement.
had to double check the Steelers thing, but you know what? I will put down my phone.
Well, you're
'cause-
right. They lost to Blake Bortles in the playoffs. They lost to Tim
Embarrassing.
Tebow in the playoffs. I don't think
Embarrassing.
that actually qualifies as who did they beat in the playoffs? The year that they beat Miami, it was, tell me his name. Who was the quarterback?
Matt Moore.
Yeah, I
Jay
think so.
Feely?
Jay Feely was a kicker. AJ Feely was a
Well,
quarterback.
the
No,
year
Jay
that they
Fiedler is
lost
I'm thinking
Tom
of,
Brady
maybe.
in the AFC title game.
Yeah.
And then, why am I losing this?
I don't know.
Miami. Yeah, it had to have been Matt
It
Moore,
was Matt
right?
Moore, confirmed. He
Matt
went
Moore.
29 of 36, 289 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception.
You lost me at Tim Tebow. That was a rough one, huh?
I mean, that was 11 years ago? 11 years ago?
That's no good.
Their
That
last
was
playoff win.
That was after they went to the Super Bowl against Aaron Rodgers. They lost to Blake Bortles, of course. That was a few years ago. Mm-hmm. They lost to Baker Mayfield. You're not calling him a great quarterback to have lost to in the playoffs, are you?
No, I'm saying they have their only playoff wins are against their last playoff win. The quarterback was Brock Osweiler, who's absolute trash.
We had him.
Well, let me
Well,
ask you
Brock
this.
Osweiler was brilliant at figuring out how to make money, right?
Yeah,
Gotta give him that.
mastered that
By
part.
the way,
I mean,
hold
you
on,
gotta
we got to
give
take
him
time
credit
out, time out. Because before we get into anything else, I want to congratulate Aditi on
Yes.
her expanded gig with CBS Sports,
Oh.
which we're very excited about.
Yeah, tell us about it. What are you going to
Yes.
be doing?
Thank you. Didn't we already go through this? Did
No,
we do
not
this
now.
already?
Not this. Not
No.
You have so many jobs.
Feels like Groundhog.
We've congratulated you on some, but not all.
You played us. You didn't come over with the scoop.
So tell us what
can
you're
I
going to
tell
be
you
doing.
that I had my husband take that picture, and it took like 18 tries, and he cut off my head most of the time. But hey, I mean, many talents, just maybe not the best photographer. Yeah, so I'm really, really pumped, and I'm not quite sure what I am at liberty to say just yet, but I will be a part of NFL coverage. I can say that. I will be doing a variety of different things. You may see me working a sideline. You may see me doing a feature or a sit down. You could see me giving news updates from perhaps a super big game, maybe an NFC game. As you know, CBS has a lot of AFC games. So I think that it will be a great variety. You'll still see me on Sundays, which is, of course, really important. And I'm just really stoked. You know, all of you have sort of seen I should say this. I would be remiss if I didn't say that it was Bull who really guided me through this transition. It was Bull who gave me the courage to say, hey, if you really believe in yourself and you want to do more than what you're getting to do where you are, just take a leap. And it was Bull who believed in me when I didn't necessarily believe in myself. And so there were many, many phone conversations where I called him crying and hung up smiling. I think this was
Now, Bull,
Well,
Hey,
thank
Bull,
you. You
Bull
didn't
just
say
did
any
the
of that,
same
but thank
thing.
you.
So, I mean, you've
Yes.
just sort of navigated that space
Yeah,
yourself.
because I had
And
been
Jay,
in the
that
same
was it.
spot you were in. Yeah, and I was nervous at times too when I made my decision, and I know you were. And you don't need to thank me at all. That's what friends are for. But I'm so happy for you. I know you're doing the podcast with the Hall of Fame. You're doing the Browns preseason. It's all coming together as it should. I'm
But
not
just
surprised
don't
at
forget
all.
about
and
the
I
Ultimate
think
Cleveland
it's about
Sports Show.
variety, right?
Yeah.
It's just, yes, this is something I'm super pumped about, and I'll be in Canton next week, and we're getting going on this. Joe Horrigan has been at the Pro Football Hall of Fame for 40-something years and just has the most absurd memory. I mean, you name anything obscure that has happened in professional football and he's got it. So this is a really cool piece of storytelling. We're going to bring in the Hall of Famers that are, you know, like if we do something on the Browns' undefeated season, which even though it wasn't in the history of the National Football League, is indeed in the history of professional football, we've got people that were affiliated with that team or part of that team or something to come and talk to us about that. And so I think it's going to be a lot of fun for football fans, a lot of fun for just passing fans who want to learn more about the game. And yes, again, and Bull, to your point of what you were saying earlier, you have to be uncomfortable sometimes, and you can't keep doing the same exact thing for a series of years and just think, okay, I'm still moving forward, I'm still growing. So there's some nervousness for sure, but I think that that's part of the fun.
Aditi, is it going to be uncomfortable for you to be wearing an Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show T-shirt while on the sidelines at all your CBS games this year?
I don't know that I'll be allowed to do that at CBS, but funny
Okay,
story. I
we'll
did
contact
actually just
the
talk
league.
to one of my superiors at CBS and said, hey, is it okay if the rest of the crew for the Browns games are wearing Browns polos, that I wear a Browns polo as well? And we figured out that every CBS broadcaster who does preseason games, such as the fabulous Evan Washburn, who does the Ravens games, does indeed wear team gear. So I may not be allowed back in the city of Pittsburgh, but apparently CBS is okay
big
with me
loss.
wearing
It's all
Browns
love.
gear.
I can't wait till we get that picture. We're going to blast that all over. We're going to blast that all over Pittsburgh. Hey, you're not forgetting about your friends here, right? I mean, some of our viewers are like, wait a minute, does that mean we're losing Aditi?
No. In fact, I was just talking to Steve Becker about when I could possibly come in studio. No. And thankfully, Mikey McNuggets is making sure that we can work with how crazy the schedule will be the next few weeks to accommodate. You'll have me live from Berea. You'll have me live
Nice.
So,
live from Berea
Very
next
good.
Wednesday.
Nice.
The
we can't
only
wait.
thing that changed is her price went through the roof.
Yeah, it's insane now.
Hey, you pay for quality.
Last I heard.
You
I'm
pay
not
for
getting a
quality.
raise
That's right.
yet.
Well, we're thrilled
But we
for
need,
you.
we need
Congratulations.
Gridiron guys to kick in that harmony or
yeah.
that melody, whatever.
Absolutely.
And then maybe we'll get a little bit more money, and then maybe it'll trickle down to me.
There you go.
Well, I'm going to follow this up with a real football question. I was talking to Jay, right?
Okay.
And I don't know if you've seen this. The situation with Kyler Murray and his little clause for 4 hours, right?
That's crazy.
Have you ever in your life heard anything about that clause? And where do you think that came from? What spawned that? Because I'm interested.
Well, what spawned that? I mean, clearly there was a reason that they felt it was necessary to actually elucidate that and put that in print. And so then that begs the question for me. If you actually have to tell the guy to study
Exactly.
and you have to hold him accountable to studying, why are you giving him $230 million?
Thank you.
Nuts.
Like,
Thank you.
it just blows my mind. I'm sorry. It really, really, truly does. But I mean, sure, we've heard that. Everybody knows the story of Jamarcus Russell and the blank DVDs. And, we know that there are certain quarterbacks that really put in the time above and beyond when they're in the building in the mandated hours. That was a storyline in Cleveland a few years ago when Hard Knocks was catching Tyrod Taylor coming in at dawn and leaving when it was dark out.
And Johnny
the
Manziel
conversation-
before that.
Stop. Stop.
Well, he was actually getting there when the sun went down and
that's
leaving when the sun came up.
right.
And you wouldn't want to do a blood alcohol content test on him when he was
doing
leaving.
bumps off those DVDs probably.
He was looking at DVDs all right. Aditi,
Oh, my.
it's
But
such
both
a
sides-
bad look. It's a bad look
both
for
sides,
Murray
yeah.
because it makes him look like he's not willing to do the work that the NFL quarterback is expected to do. But to your point of the Cardinals, my question is, how the hell did this nugget get out? Because I can't imagine either team, either side here, would have wanted that information to be public.
Sure, but I mean, the contract can be found. Players' contracts can be read. So that's not that surprising that it was out there. Again, it comes back to this. Why do you have to tell him to do that? What shouldn't that just be unsaid? Shouldn't that just be a given?
You would
I mean,
think.
it feels like I don't know what professions there are that are such as the profession that we're all in here. In a highly competitive field, you can't expect to just show up and punch a clock. You have to want to chase something beyond just the time that you are in the building. And when you are in the building, again, you're not just punching a clock. I mean, how many guys do you know take their lunch into the film room or are doing something extra on Tuesdays that are in theory days off? I mean, look at the Bengals. Look at Bull's favorite team. Part of why that defense was so successful is that every single Tuesday, the defensive backfield came in. Von Bell and Jesse Bates were getting Chick-fil-A and getting everybody in. And on their own, they're watching film and they're talking to each other. And the safeties are saying to the corners, what are you seeing here? Okay, this is what I'm seeing. This is how we can make this work together. That's not in their contract. That's not required by their coach. They're doing that because they want to be great. It just seems really bizarre to me that you'd have to actually encourage a player to do that a player wouldn't automatically think, hey, I want to be the best to ever do this, so I'm going to do that. I mean, nobody told Antonio Brown you have to stay after every practice and catch hundreds of balls off of jugs machines. That's who he was. It just, again, I don't want to say that it's a generational thing. I just don't get why you pay someone that amount of money if you're really questioning the work ethic there.
Yeah,
because we haven't seen from Kyler Murray right now that just on base talent alone, he is far and away lights out better than anybody.
No, and you're giving him $240 million and homework. And that, to me, that seems absurd. McNuggets has a point he wants to make.
I just had a question, Aditi. We didn't see anything like this in Deshaun's contract, but there's nothing remotely like this within what the Browns and Deshaun signed, correct?
Not that I've been made aware of, but again, of all the, not to minimize or diminish any of the other baggage, but at least on the field, I have never heard anybody question Deshaun Watson's commitment or focus or energies or where he directs his work on the field on that piece. So maybe that's why it didn't have to actually be written in. I mean, in some ways, look, guys have weight clauses, right? Like you're fined if you are above a certain weight, or you get a bonus if you keep clocking in at a certain weight. I just went out with Cam Hayward's mom, and she was telling me that Cam's dad, Craig Ironhead Hayward, 1 year with, I believe it was the Bears, there was a clause in the contract that every single week when he weighed 260 pounds or less, it was whatever it was, $10,000. So, I mean, I guess if you're going to monitor somebody's weight or tie somebody's pay to his weight or to when he shows up for a workout or a strength session, then maybe you're going to tie it to the mental piece of it. It just, again, seems very unusual that you'd have to actually do that.
Aditi, we yesterday, the first day of camp, Myles Garrett had some really interesting comments. He talked about the fact that, because obviously he's being asked, how do you handle the unknown of Watson and what do you do if he doesn't play? He said it has nothing to do with Jacoby in terms of, what the defense has got to do. I believe in his ability, but I'm putting the pressure on us because I know what we have in store. The rest of us, you and us and everybody in the media, we could go and say, well, obviously they're not going to win as many games with Jacoby Brissett as they would with Deshaun Watson. But the team can't feel that way, and I think it's important for the leaders like Myles Garrett to make that clear. Like, it's the whole team doesn't get a pass for the games that Watson doesn't play, right? Is that fair?
Well, of course, and all the great defensive players, you'll hear that from. TJ Watt and Cam Hayward were saying the same thing a year ago when the Steelers' offense was struggling. Well, it's the defense's job to hold them scoreless then. And if the defense holds the other team to 10 points and the offense can't score 11, well, you're always going to get the great defensive leader saying, well, we allowed 10. We shouldn't have. And it's easy for us to say, okay, the numbers show that if you hold an NFL team to 17 points or less, you have 95% chance of winning the game. But it doesn't always work out that way. And this goes back to when we were all talking about whether Baker Mayfield would be traded to Carolina. This was months ago. We all had this conversation, and it was, oh, wow, that just plays into exactly who Baker is, and that Baker would be about as jacked up as could be to take on the Browns week 1. And I can't remember who it was, but somebody's response was, well, you don't think that Myles Garrett and Denzel Ward have something to say on the flip side of that?
Yeah.
That's what you want out of your defensive players, and that's what Myles Garrett should be saying and preaching.
Aditi, is there anything in particular that you're looking at as camp actually heats up here in Cleveland? That any kind of position battles or any storylines that you're following?
Well, yeah, I want to see what the wide receivers do, right? I want to see, is David Njoku really a number 2 target? Is David Njoku a different guy now that he's got this money? And I mean that in a positive way. Is he a guy that's going out and fuel to prove and justify why he got that money and that he should be a bigger threat and a more reliable option? I want to see who lines up behind Amari Cooper, what other options there are. I'm still excited to see Harrison Bryant since Kevin Stefanski's been so bullish on him since, I don't know, the spring, right? In the spring, he was telling us he was bullish on him. I think Donovan Peoples-Jones looked really good, showed us some big flashes last year. I remember being on the field during training camp, and he caught a big touchdown right behind me when I was doing a live shot. I'm excited about him. I'm excited to see Josh Dobbs because he's one of my favorite people in the NFL. And I loved what Kevin Stefanski had to say about him yesterday. Am I allowed to have a personal feeling like that? Can I just say, hey, he's the guy that makes me smile? I'm excited to see him.
I'm sure Josh Dobbs is thrilled to have someone excited to see him, and I'm glad that it's you. I mean, good for him.
This guy.
Did you guys know
honestly,
Josh
like,
Dobbs?
You need to spend a little time with Josh Dobbs. Not only is he brilliant, because he really is a true life rocket scientist,
Yes.
but he's just one of the nicest guys.
Get him in here.
Really,
We'd love to
truly
talk to Josh Dobbs.
Yeah, bring him in with you.
Yeah. Bring the Dauber.
We should do that.
We'll talk
We
now.
should
Bring
make
Captain
it happen.
Dobbs.
We'll talk
You guys
now.
know how we've talked a lot about random Madden ratings last
Yeah.
couple weeks?
Yeah.
Josh Dobbs, #1 truck rating for all quarterbacks in the NFL and Madden.
Where did
I don't
they
get it.
pull that from?
Really?
I don't get it.
Get that
What is
from?
truck
Josh Dobbs
rating,
tweeted
by
it
the
out.
way?
Yeah, we'll pull it up. Give me 1 sec.
Oh, running over people?
There you
Well,
go,
is
boo.
he that guy, Aditi?
He's barely been on the field. How would they know
I mean, how are
that?
they going to know that he's going to run people over?
Because he can? Because he's strong? You know, it's so funny because I spent a few years lobbying Mike Tomlin. Why can't you just use him as your change of pace guy? You know, the Steelers never used a second quarterback. But it was kind of like if Drew Brees was willing to come off the field for Taysom Hill a few times,
Right.
why couldn't Ben come off for Josh Dobbs
That's
a couple
interesting.
times?
Yeah.
You
Well,
know?
because
And of
Ben
course,
was
Mike Tomlin, as usual, did not listen to me, but hey.
Should have.
Ben was a truck himself, so you know, in some cases you can see why Drew would come off the field because it gives you a different look.
Deshaun Watson, #6 in the truck rating.
This is unacceptable.
Baker Mayfield, #7.
Unacceptable
Baker
list.
Mayfield 7.
Josh Allen
He
is
couldn't truck me.
Josh Allen is #1 by a wide margin. He should be at least 89 in trucking.
That's true.
Yeah, this is my favorite
I
stat that I
think
was
some
unaware
of
of.
it is attitude, too, right? Like, how do we even know Malik Willis is there? We haven't
Right, he
seen
never
Malik
played.
Willis
Right.
do anything in
Trey
the National
Lance?
Football
That guy
League.
doesn't look tough.
They need to get.
I'll truck Baker Mayfield any day of the week.
Can we get that?
I'll
Can,
truck him.
can we set that up?
I would love to
Oklahoma
see it.
drill.
Oklahoma
He
drill.
can't
Bull
truck me.
versus
And Baker.
Listen,
No, it was
300 plus pounds. He ain't
underrated.
trucking me.
Go for the weak shoulder. That's what I'd scream.
what do you
Wait,
think,
guys,
Aditi?
you
I mean,
know
maybe-
who's an underrated trucker is Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow plays quarterback
Yeah, no,
like a
he'll
linebacker.
drop his. Yeah, he'll drop his shoulder.
Yeah.
He will.
He
He
definitely
will.
Sometimes to
Jameis
his detriment.
Winston?
I mean, I remember talking to the Bengals offensive coordinator, Brian Callahan, last year about you can't necessarily coach that out of him, but you
Right.
hope he grows out of it at some point.
Yeah. Well,
Jameis?
Yeah, I don't know, but I think the whole Madden rating. I mean, if Jamar Chase isn't
terrible.
a top 10 receiver,
yeah,
really,
I know. I'm with you.
if Minka Fitzpatrick isn't a top 10 safety,
Yeah.
it's just,
right.
I don't know. Some of it feels a little funny to me.
All right, let me hit you, Aditi, and you guys with these crazy numbers I saw. I'll give credit to ESPN. They had this article. 2 bizarre stats that show how unlucky the Browns were last year, and you'd think, just because luck changes, that maybe the Browns will get lucky, since we're speaking of numbers. Did you know the Browns' opponents did not miss a single field goal last year, except the one that was blocked in the second game of the year? So any kick that got past the line of scrimmage against the Browns was made.
I knew that.
Not a single. You knew that? I saw that. That blew my mind.
I saw that like 2 or 3
Okay, but-
2 or 3 days ago. Yeah, it's crazy.
Wow.
Is that luck, or is that a statement on your special teams, on your field goal
Well, but
defense unit?
Aditi, I mean, yeah, you're going to block one here and there, but for the most part,
Yeah.
most kicks are at least off the kicker's foot. A small percentage of them get blocked.
Right.
But I think that is
Sure, but
luck.
like, can you
That's a
at
lot of
least
that's
like with
luck.
your push maybe adjust the way the kicker feels or rushes the kick or the snap?
need
or gets
context.
off
I wanna
the
know
snap?
if one-
I don't know.
was there
I
one
don't
team
know
that had, like,
anything about the
15
whole
of them?
operation.
Well, right now,
just look at the kick average. The kick made average for the league is, I'm guessing it would be in the 80 percentile. I could be wrong. It could be lower
Just
than that.
field goals?
Just field goals.
It's a little lower than that.
80%,
70
okay,
something,
even
yeah.
70s. So for a team to have a 100% kick against, that's just bad
That's crazy.
luck. That's
Well,
just crazy
okay.
bad luck.
At least some of it is bad luck. I would say most, if not all
Could
of it.
they have
but-
forced more blocks?
Yeah.
Probably.
You have 3 really good kickers for other teams here.
In the
3
division.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
true.
and that
You're
has
playing,
a lot to
Right.
do
you're
with
playing
it.
6 games against those guys.
Now this is also some luck, but there's more to it than just luck with this one. The Browns on fumbles, whether they fumbled on offense or whether where the other team's offense fumbled and they were on defense, or there was a fumble on special teams, the Browns recovered 35% of all fumbles in their games, the lowest percentage in the entire league.
You know, that one's more skill based.
There's some luck there.
That's coaching. That's not
But-
luck.
Right, but
That's
there's
coaching.
some luck because the ball could bounce or whatever.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, maybe, but not to the tune of 35%.
No, worse
You've got to
than
be
the
more
league.
ball aware.
That's something that I thought was like, you think about that. Even if you're at 45%, that's another 3-4 fumbles go your way. That could be the difference between a game or two.
What was the next lowest?
I didn't
percentage
see
recovery?
the next lowest, but I just know that was the lowest in the
Aditi,
league.
to that point, I think last year, that's why it was interesting to me that they made such a pivot as an organization. Last year, in total, there were a lot of fluky things like that. The COVID, I know all teams were dealing with COVID. It just felt like when the Browns were hit with it, it was the absolute worst possible timing. The Baker injury, the Odell thing blowing up. It was just like, in total, it seemed like they were losing the dial on the 8 ball every turn. It was coming up negative.
But Jay, let me stop you.
Sure.
Every single fan base could sit here and say something like that.
They
You
can.
don't think that John Harbaugh and the Ravens fans last year, they had 20 major contributors.
Sure.
20. I'm not talking about 20 guys. I'm
No,
talking
I get
about
it.
20 starters and major contributors that went on IR. They didn't have Lamar Jackson for the whole tail end of the season, and they lost, 5 games by 1 or 2 points?
Yeah.
Nearly beat the
Well, that's
Packers,
the
nearly
league,
beat
though.
the Rams. I mean, you could say that the Ravens could say that 2 years ago when the Steelers started 11-0, they got screwed by the whole Titans COVID situation, then by the Ravens COVID situation. Then they were screaming at that time, "Hey, we're doing everything right, but we're getting affected by it." I'm
sure
this
that
is the nature of whatever your fan base is.
There were also
and I
teams
think
last
it's
year,
hard
though,
to say
that-
the Browns were any more unlucky than anybody else.
But there were also teams last year, and this happens every year. There were teams last year where he's like, wow, they're getting one break after another. And part of going to the Super Bowl, of course, it has a lot to do with your roster. But when you look at the teams that make it to the Super Bowl, and they're the 2 left standing, you can look through and you can circle a number of things that happened that went their way.
Sure.
So I know that I don't want to lean too
sometimes you
heavily
make
on
your
that.
own luck.
But remember, the organization pivoted on the most important position in the organization. And to your point, and this is the NFL in general, an 11-6 can just as easily be a 6-11. The margin between that is so narrow that's why the Bengals were able to do what they did last year. They weren't a horrible team 2 years ago. They just got a lot of bad breaks. They put a lot of things together.
Well, they were pretty bad 2 years ago, especially when Burrow got hurt.
Well, yeah, but that's a bad break.
Yeah.
That's a bad break. They didn't have that break last year. They were in the Super Bowl. McNuggets is screaming at me. What do we have to do mailbag?
Yeah, we got to do mailbag because we have Jen Matthews coming on next. But
okay.
Aditi, we got some great questions for you from the mailbag that we need you to answer for us. And as always, when we ask the internet for questions, it's brought to you by PCC Airfoils. Are you looking for a job with career advancement and great benefits? PCC Airfoils is a leading manufacturer in Northeast Ohio. All locations of PCC Airfoils at Eastlake, Mentor, Wickliffe, and Minerva are hiring for all positions starting at $18 and up, plus full benefit packages, paid time off, and a signing bonus. Apply online at precast.com/careers to learn more.
The devil went down to Georgia. He was looking for a PCC Airfoils to steal.
I feel like you're reaching.
That's a huge reach right there. That was a huge reach.
Wow. And
It's just a song you like.
The tone and delivery, I think you're
Listen,
reaching immediately.
I have to come up with a million different songs every
I
day.
understand.
Sometimes they're going to be a reach.
Yeah, I
Mike
get it.
was on it at Jump, though. You didn't even have the lyric out of your mouth. I think you're reaching.
It didn't rhyme. It didn't
at
go.
all.
I appreciate the effort.
At all.
Yeah.
But it was
Okay.
effort. Yeah.
It
I'm
was
with you, Mike.
A for effort.
No, it wasn't really that much.
What
of
do we
an
got
effort,
for
to be
Aditi,
honest.
Mike?
Yep,
I had a
so
better
we have-
effort, it would have been a
We
better
have
song.
Jen in the portal, so
Pivoting
we're going to run through these
immediately.
pretty quick.
Okay.
We put out a tweet yesterday.
portal.
You can take tag board Steve. You got a
officially the
question for
portal now.
Aditi
It is the
about
portal.
Browns training camp or anything else? Drop it below. We may ask him on the show tomorrow, which we did. So Aditi, first question from Major_83. Which Browns players could play both offense and defense if needed? What positions would that player play?
That's easy.
Myles Garrett could play wherever he wants. He could absolutely be a fullback, I think. Can you imagine Myles Garrett clearing the way for Nick Chubb or Kareem Hunt?
That sounds like fun.
I mean, but
Love
does that feel like a cop-out? I would
No,
take
it's a
John Johnson as a slot receiver.
Yeah.
I'd take Denzel Ward, too, as a little scat receiver. You know, he's
As a little
quick.
scat receiver. I could do
Yeah.
Ward doing that.
Could
I
Nick
would
Chubb
use-
play linebacker
No.
or safety?
I wouldn't want him to.
No.
No, I mean,
No.
not that you'd really want him to do it, but could he do it?
I think Dimitri Felton could play corner.
He's tiny, though.
Corners are tiny.
All right. All right, number 2, McNuggets.
All right, number 2. We got 3. This is the second one. This is from Dale Strife. Pittsburgh and Baltimore have been the big brothers of the AFC North for a long time. Do you see that flipping and the Ohio teams becoming dominant for the next decade?
I don't see either Pittsburgh or Baltimore and the way those organizations are constructed and what their ownership is like ever being dominated for a decade. I just don't see either of those teams falling off and being irrelevant for a period of time. Could I see Bengals and the Browns creating a decade of tremendous play? Yes, but I just don't see Pittsburgh or Baltimore falling apart.
Not what we wanted to hear, but thank you. Third question.
It's hard to believe falling apart, but until Pittsburgh gets a real quarterback,
I like this Mike right here.
It's not what we wanted to hear.
Sadly,
it's true.
Steelers have one playoff win since losing the Super Bowl.
Okay, but how many losing seasons have they had in the last 20 years?
No, they're not going to fall apart. I agree with Didi. They won't fall apart. But I don't think they're a legit contender.
A down year for them is 9-8 and just barely missing the playoffs. Same for Baltimore.
That's been the case.
Because the organization has such high expectations.
I don't know if Kenny Pickett is trash.
If he's trash,
they can take some L's.
Come on now.
Hey, we don't know.
All right, last one, Mikey.
We got one more question. It's a two-parter, Aditi. Do you think the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show is going to surpass 50,000 subs?
50,000?
And also, with Tomlin coaching his 15th season, how much longer do you think he has in him?
Of course he did.
Well, yes, to the 50K subs, of course. I'm actually surprised that we're not there just yet, but it's only a matter of days at this point, a matter of time, and especially with the season starting, obviously the content is only going to get juicier and more necessary to pay attention to. And as for Tomlin, he's got as long as he wants. You know, he really, if you watched him at his opening press conference 2 days ago, the excitement, the energy, the smile, the way that he was talking about boiling his mouth guard back in 1979, and that every year since then, it's been the same feeling. It's that first day of school excitement. He's got that. And then I'd also recommend you go and you listen to the fabulous Ryan Clark's podcast, The Pivot. And Mike Tomlin was talking about coaching. I mean, it was just a fascinating conversation because you usually don't get Mike Tomlin to really open up that way. But he was very relaxed with Ryan Clark, one of his favorite players. And he was saying that one of his greatest pet peeves is when he hears about players who are uncoachable or hard to coach or have an issue with some sort of technique or bad, hand placement. And Tomlin basically said, that's coaching. That's not on the kid. It's not a kid that's uncoachable. You're a bad coach if you can't reach a kid, if you can't teach him where his hands are supposed to be. Right. And the passion with which he spoke, it was very clearly that the craft of teaching, the art of coaching, is still something that fuels him tremendously. And also in 15 years, I think he's grown with players. He's grown with a lot of mercurial personalities, and he's learned. One of his favorite lines, I'll use this one of his favorite lines, and I'll leave this with you, is that he doesn't treat everybody equally. He treats everybody fairly. And I think that really speaks to who he is that he recognizes different people have different motivators and need to be pushed and pulled in different ways. And he's very, very, very good at that.
It's a good piece of life advice.
No, it is. It really is. And a whole lot of Tony Dungy in him, not by surprise. Aditi, wonderful stuff. Thank you very much. Have a great weekend, and we will see you next week. Is it possible that next week we get you in studio?
We're trying to figure that out one day, but I don't think so.
All right, well, give Bull at least 3 days' notice so we can shower. So we don't want you popping in.
Twice a day.
He's cooking for me the next time I'm in town.
That's big guy bias.
Congrats, big guy bias.
Big guy bias.
Again, Didi.
You're right,
Congrats
it
again.
is.
Thank you.
Bye, Didi.
Bye, everybody. Talk to you
you're right.
soon.
That was unfair. I apologize for that.
I'm on vacation next week anyway.
You can't be on vacation when Aditi's in.
Well, she won't be. She said she doesn't think she's going to be in next week.
Well, she might be, maybe, possible. I'm holding out hope.
I'm not canceling my vacation.
Do not get your hopes up. Her schedule next week is absurd.
I'm sure it is a bear.
In demand.
Sure it is. All right, from one beauty to another. How lucky are we? Jen Matthews joins us now. Jen, welcome to the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show. I know this is going to be hard for you, but I want to start by getting your reaction to the horrible news yesterday that Dad did not make the list of finalists from the senior/coach committee. What's your initial take?
It's nonsense, I tell you. No, you know what? I was upset. Onward and upward. I tell you what, I really don't think it's what Cleveland fans wanted to hear, because Schottenheimer and my dad didn't advance, but Art Modell did. So,
yeah, that was trash.
Not great.
Hopefully he won't get in.
God, I just can't imagine he does. But
what's the vibe like at the Matthews compound?
You know what? I think us kids are more upset than my dad is.
I bet.
He's like, I said, I'm sorry, Dad. And he's like, you know what, Jennifer? I don't need awards. I enjoyed playing the game. It would be an honor if I was put in. And I'm like, no, but it's not fair. And I'm talking to my brother Clay, and he's like, it's ridiculous. So he's actually the one comforting us. But you know what? Onward and upward, like I said. Congratulations to all the people who did advance. So now there are 24. And then I believe the voters meet on August 12th or so, or the 15th. To take it down further. But he will make it. And you know what? It's going to be like the brides whose weddings were canceled 5 million times during COVID. We're just going to party extra hard when he does.
You know, on that note, is your brother, I know your brother had a tremendous career. Where is your brother in terms of Hall of Fame support? And maybe, just maybe, if we can dream for a second, can you imagine if they go in together? Maybe that's what everybody's waiting for.
I knew you were going to say that because people have brought it up, and it's the best point ever. I would not argue if that happened. I would be happy as can be. I think people would get sick of us, though. They'd be like, oh, these Matthews are everywhere. But I'm up for that. We can party twice as hard.
Great storyline.
It'd be a hell of a party.
And the NFL likes a good storyline, you know? They got a little bit of WWE in them sometimes, and I could actually see them possibly, like, messing with that. Who knows?
I know. It'd be great. It'd be a great story because your brother, in my mind, as I think of your brother and his career, he was a dominant player for a long time on a great team, and that's the formula. That's what you need.
Right.
Yep.
Right. And really, you know, they always have this magic number of 100 sacks. And Clay's like, wait a second, they moved me inside. He's almost there, but he's like, they moved me inside for 3 years when they were struggling on the inside. So he was a middle linebacker, and he ended up kind of shooting himself in the foot because he did so well that they're like, can you stay here? But then it was like, wait a second, we're paying this guy the big bucks to pass rush. He's an edge rusher. We'll put him back. So it all worked out.
Yeah, they must take that kind of stuff into consideration.
I would think they do. Yeah, I would think they should.
So.
Yeah, they should. And those that know the game understand that it didn't mean he had less impact, because to your point, he was so good after the move that they stopped having to worry about that long term.
Right.
Who was gonna fill that role?
It's always so tricky with defensive players. Same thing with offensive linemen, because there's not as many stats, right?
Right.
Like,
yeah.
You know, with wide receivers, quarterbacks, running backs, you have a better feel for whether they're a Hall of Famer.
It's also hard to compare generation to generation because the game has changed so much.
100%.
Clearly, guys are getting more sacks now because the quarterback is dropping back to pass a hell of a lot more.
100%.
So it's a passing league. So those that are compiling all these sack numbers,
right?
It was just a different game when your father played, and even when your brother played, it's changed since then.
100%.
It's a different league.
Right. And now you have, you know, incredible athletes like Myles Garrett, who they just line him up and let him rush, as they should, because that's where he's best.
Right.
So the game has changed, but you know what? It's okay. We're competitive enough. We're like, all right, so we got knocked down. We'll get back up we got a little Vince Lombardi in us, and it'll all work out as it's supposed to. But definitely not a good day for Cleveland fans when I saw, wait a second.
Do you think there's an anti-Browns bias? A lot of fans feel that way. Like the teams that have won more often, the Steelers, maybe get benefit of the doubt on players more. Do you think that factors in?
I do. And I think that's a great question. You would think there would be a bias towards us because we're a hop, skip, and a jump from Canton, but I do think so. Because inevitably, like now, teams who win and who have been winning get more media coverage. It all plays into it. So it has to have a say in it. But I would love to have I would love to see more and more Cleveland players go in. And if Canton wants to fill that stadium, that's what they'll do, because Cleveland will show up and take over.
You aren't kidding.
Here's I'm going to pitch this to you. You know, maybe you need to advocate a little bit more aggressively, and by that I mean maybe in the off season, the Matthews boys, all of them, get into an SUV. They travel around the country and go to each of these sports writers' houses and just show up there in a very friendly manner and say, hey, here's why we think my dad deserves to be in. Don't intimidate necessarily if they get that impression. And most sports writers are pretty big nerds and will be terrified if a bunch of Matthews pull up to their house. And just be like, here's his stats, here's a PowerPoint, and then just see if maybe that changes some minds.
And then challenge them to a game of football.
And then challenge them to a game of football, and we'll show you how good he is. Have you thought about using more intimidating tactics like that? You've got all these Matthews brothers.
You know what? I really ought to add that to my repertoire. Intimidation. I was just thinking of creating awareness of my dad's amazing career, but maybe we've got to move to those sort of, that approach.
Jen, I think you need to go along too. Jen needs to go on that tour too, because you're the best advocate, the biggest advocate for anybody's Hall of Fame candidacy I've ever seen. It's tremendous the work that you're doing for Dad.
And Jay, when my dad did that interview with you, remember, he was like, "Oh my gosh, I'm so uncomfortable." He told me to stop. And I said, and I respect my father so much. And I said, "Dad, I do have to willingly disobey you because this is ridiculous." And he's like, "Oh gosh, all right, fine, I'll pick my battles." But
Sometimes
I'll
we
keep
know best.
fighting.
Hey, Jen, I don't know if somebody had to ask you this at one point in time. You got all these brothers and your uncles and your dad, they played football. What would be your best position if you played football?
Good question.
Okay, I want to be I want them to line me up on the edge and let me pass rush. I want to do some bull rushes. I swear, sometimes I'm like, man, that would be so, when you're angry, and I like to think I'm a pretty nice person. I'm pretty level-headed. But I'm like, man, if they could just line me up and I could use some of those moves. I used to, Kevin Green, the late Kevin Green, when he coached Clay, he loved a good bull rush, and I don't think they do this anymore. I don't think I'm getting anyone in trouble. No, this isn't college football. Okay, he used to get a bottle of wine for every sack, and Kevin loved a good bull rush. So I would just watch the moves, and I'm like, I think I could do that, or I'd spin out that way, or a little juke this way. But and then just that when you've gotten around the O-lineman and you're coming from the edge and you see the quarterback, especially if it's on the blind side, and you're like, oh, I got this. This is like,
can we get a TikTok video with your fiance / husband trying to block you, and you working the swim move and the hands push pulls?
I love it. No, but remember, we can't. I've got to lay the quarterback down. I don't want to get a, roughing the passer. Clay became
so delicate these days.
I'm not really sure how you're supposed to sack a quarterback without having your arms around him.
You're supposed to pull his flag.
That's it.
Let me lay him down and then go, good luck next time.
You have to apologize to him too when you
got to hit him between his belly button and his groin.
Yeah, he's got a very small target area.
The thing is, when you watch the highlight videos from back in the day, even my dad's stuff, I'm like, it was just a more violent game. I'm like, that would have been a flag. That would have been taken back. That would have been called out. It would have been ejected. And it was just how they played. It wasn't that any of the guys were dirty players. And I'm all for protecting and making it safe, but there's a line when it's like, well, this is tackle football, so you kind of know what you're saying.
Yeah, it's
Bernie Kosar's mostly made of screws and washers and bolts at this point. He can't even get through TSA, the poor son of a gun.
Bernie's one of my favorites of all time. He was always so good to me, and now it's like, to run into these guys in present day, as an adult, especially when I haven't seen him in years, and I say, hey, Eric Metcalf, I'm Jennifer Matthews and Clay's daughter, and there's kind of this oh, you grew up, you were just a little kid.
Right.
I'm like, that happens.
They thought you'd be a little kid forever.
McNuggets has a question. Go ahead, Mike.
Jen, we've talked about you coming in studio at one point, so maybe when you come, we could set up some one-on-one pass rushing drills between you, Bull, Polk, G, and Jay. But just initial guess, who you beating off the line the worst out of these four on the panel right now?
Well, I'm the biggest guy, so. Well, G's the biggest guy. I don't know.
There is no right answer here. I have to.
Yeah, there's none.
You take me down, Jay.
Hey, look, you do mess with Mike Polk.
You take me down.
I'd have to block her. No, you're not going to just beat me out the ball. You can't have that. My parents are watching me.
Scrappy. He's like, no, you're not. I'm not going down easy. I could see you getting a little scrappy, G. I don't know.
Yeah, I can see that.
Oh yeah, we'd be in here. They'd be like, you guys can't do that. You're holding her. What are you doing? They're like, security. There's a big black guy. No, you can't say that.
Hey, Jen, training camp started yesterday. The Browns got moved indoors because of rain, so there wasn't a whole lot going on. But I'm curious your earliest memories when Dad would go off to camp. What do you remember about those times?
Yeah, I remember them very vividly because he played from, not my first few years, but from the time I was born until I was 15. So he would always go. So we lived in California in the off season. So he would go back ahead of us, and we were always so sad because we wouldn't get to see him for a few weeks. So my mom said if we promised to behave for a month, which that would have been a sheer miracle in and of itself with 5 of us and 4 boys, she said we can go to Toys R Us. You guys remember Toys R Us?
Yeah.
God, just a
It's
tragedy.
coming back. It is coming back.
It is?
Yeah, it's out of bankruptcy. Someone else bought them.
Yeah, they screwed their creditors over, and now they're coming back.
Great story. Very uplifting.
American dream.
The American
So we
dream, you're
got
right.
Toys R Us. We'd get a toy, and then my mom would, fly back with the 5 of us, and then they'd have family day and that sort of stuff. But I remember as my dad would prepare leading up to camp, there would be some of the nerves, and as soon as he got back out on the field, he would say, I remember he'd call my mom and say, I still got it. Because I guess in the NFL, you're so replaceable, right? Like, it's a business. There's no loyalty. They're always looking for the, next young, fast, strong guy. And so my dad was, especially in year like 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, he's thinking, man, you got some young guys in here. And then he'd get out there, and he said once he got in the groove, he was happy and he was ready for the season, I think, at that point. But you got to understand, too, we were very fortunate in that they weren't fighting for roster spots. And as you see shows like Hard Knocks and that, you do realize that training camp for a lot of people, it's make or break. They're fighting for a spot on the roster, even if it's a second string position. So it is high stakes. And, my dad said you would have one guy in there, and then the next thing you know, he's gone and he's cleaning out his locker, especially when free agency came into play kind of later on. But I would always feel a sense of like excitement because it meant we were on the verge of another season, which is kind of what it's what they're training for year round.
But let's be honest. We're talking about your dad. Your dad had the easy job. Your mom had to schlep 5 kids across the country. That's the tough job.
I know. My mom's probably like, I'll go to training camp. You deal with these 5 hellions. And
5 kids on a plane. My God.
She should be in the Hall of Fame.
Let's
She
put
should.
her
I
in, too.
tell her, I'm like, she's a saint. Like, and I have there's 5 of us born in 7.5 years. So, but you know what happened? We finally figured out who were the problem causers, and it was my brothers Kyle and Clay. And because we were at an odd number, my mom's like, ding, one year Kyle got separated and Clay got separated. So they were with strangers. Within eyesight. And all of a sudden, all the fighting stopped. So my mom goes, ding, this is amazing. I'm going to seat them by themselves all the time, and all of our problems will be solved.
Smart parenting tactic. So Jen, did you guys then? Where did you go to school? Were you living full time in California? And if so, that had to be tough because Dad was never around during the season, I imagine.
Well, that's the thing. So we would split the school year. We would do football season wherever he played, and we'd go to school. We went to regular school. We weren't homeschooled. My mom's like, I'm not homeschooling 5 of you.
God.
And then in the off season, we moved back to California and go there. So I switched. We all did. We switched schools every 6 months. Wow. I did that until I was. Yeah. So I was a pretty shy kid, though no one believes it because I'm outgoing now. But I did have to learn how to go into new situations and, make friends and kind of find something in common. And, I went to middle school in California, Ohio, and Georgia. High school, I would go to fall semester in Georgia, spring semester in California.
Yeah.
So it was just part of our childhood. And I do believe now I'm pretty flexible. You can kind of put me in anywhere, and I just roll with it. And I survived 4 brothers. Don't I deserve some sort of award?
You do, but you know what, Jen? I feel like you should almost be some sort of ambassador for education. Like you probably better than anyone can speak to how Ohio's education stacks up against California's. Did you have a favorite place that you went to school you might want to say Ohio?
We're losing that battle.
Yeah, we're like below Alabama.
Well, let's wait. Let's ask the expert. Who did it best? And it's okay if it's not Ohio. That's fine.
No, I had a great education in Ohio. I loved living in Ohio. This anti-Cleveland sentiment across the country, they'll say, oh, where have you lived? And I'll say, Cleveland, Ohio. And they're like, oh, the armpit of America. And I'm like, have you been there? They're like, no. And I said, where do you live? They're like, I live in Buffalo, New York. I'm like, I'm just going to say, I loved Cleveland. I loved my schooling there. People take their sports seriously, and I played 4 sports. I love the fan. We really did love our experience there. And Georgia, I was in high school at the time, so it was a little bit harder. And I go down to Georgia, and it was so interesting down there because people live and breathe. Yes, they live and breathe Ohio State football, and they live and breathe the Browns. You go down to the South, and for the most part, it's college football. People are kind of like, And it was very interesting because they were it was like college football and high school football were the priority, and then NFL was kind of like, whatever, give or
As
take.
Southerners are not
It
known
was
for their
good.
taste.
That
you know.
education thing did have to be, I mean, it sounds very daunting for a kid, but it did have to be a little bit easier being you, because can you imagine just being in high school and you're just like, we just got this new girl in our class. She's an attractive woman, and it's Clay Matthews' daughter. I mean, like, that's exciting. Like, if I'm jumping high schools as like a ginger with braces,
He's
I'm
getting
gonna have
beat up in 2 different schools.
my dad has like a furniture store somewhere. Like, nobody cares, but you probably were a cool kid.
Yeah, I would like to think it was my kindness and my,
Sure.
great sparkling personality. But no, people were afraid. Although I had like my friend's mom saying like, your dad is so attractive. Your dad's such a star. And I remember being like 8 years old.
Shout out to him.
Who are you?
No, that's creepy.
Yeah.
To say that to a kid.
Hey,
I
listen.
know. Well, here's the thing. So fast forward to now, I have like 80-year-old women who like, oh, that brother of yours. And I'm like,
You know, you still got it. Shout out to them. Listen, he still got it. If I catch him in his mirror with the slick back, like, yeah, they know I'm Clay. I got that 57 jersey.
well, no one. Did you see how Aaron Rodgers showed up to training camp? Like some Nicolas Cage vibes?
That was, you know
was
what? That's exactly what it reminded me of. I was kind of disturbed by it. Have you guys seen
Yes,
the video?
I've seen it.
Yes.
Wow. Can you call that up on Tag Board? We're gonna show that for our viewers, and there's some things you just can't unsee. But honestly, when I saw it, my first thought was, he might need counseling. Mm-hmm. I mean,
Well,
he's trying to prove
No,
something.
he was doing a bit. It was a Nick Cage remake. He was doing a whole
okay.
bit.
I didn't read
No.
anything. Okay,
Yeah, that's
Wait,
the thing with the Nicolas Cage vibes.
wait a second. You're
Yeah,
wrong.
Aaron has expressed his disdain for the media, but I think he's for someone who doesn't like the media. I'm like,
Yeah.
he sure knows how to,
Well, wait a
play the game.
No,
so.
here's the true story about what happened. He had to spend the whole offseason pulling the chicken bone from choking yet again in the playoffs out of his throat, and he got blood all over his sleeves, and that's why he had to rip him off.
Okay, so this was a spoof. This was a parody. I feel better about that now because when I saw it, I just looked at it and I'm like, what in the hell is wrong with it?
Yeah.
Hey man, hey, way to sell it. Way to sell it. If you're gonna do a bit, sell it. I like it. Go ahead, do your thing, Aaron
Con
Rodgers.
Air, right? Yeah.
You're okay with it?
It's a Con Air look.
Oh,
Are you guys ready to see the side by side?
Yeah.
Sure.
Of Nick
let's
Cage
do
from
it.
Aaron
Con Air, yeah.
Rodgers. Yeah, give us actually 1 second.
So
It's-
did he?
it's loading
So
as
this
we
is kind of
speak.
like when Baker Mayfield did the Brett Favre draft photo spoof. Remember,
Yes,
does
I
everybody
remember.
that? He's
Yep, they
wearing the
reenacted
jorts
that.
and the huge cordless phone.
They've had an exact identical career so far.
We're missing an opportunity here. I saw Aaron Rodgers' long hair.
Yeah.
I'd be amiss to say your brother also. He was known for the long locks of hair. Do you like the short hair or do you like the long hair?
That's a good question. My dad played with the long hair, the flow coming out of the helmet.
He did.
And
It
then I
was
got
the
to
80s.
tell you, his last year, he's in Atlanta, and he comes home one day, and he didn't tell anyone, and he had cut it. We're like, who are you? Where's my dad? And he said to us, I don't want to be another 40-year-old with long hair. I don't want to be that. And so it took a while for us to get used to it. So Clay is at USC, right? He's a walk-on. He's hardly getting any playing time. He's like, I'm going to start growing out my hair. So, of course, it went through that incredibly awkward stage where you're like, is it short? Is it long?
It's like a Prince Valiant, yeah.
Yeah, it was just this real awkward stage. And then he got out of it and he just kept growing it. And he does, I have to say, have good hair. I mean, he got a hair deal out of it.
He
I'm
did.
like,
I mean, you
this
guys
is
got good
so
genes.
long.
I mean,
He's
that's a
getting
lot.
paid for his hair, and I'm the girl just like, well, that's cool. But he just kept letting it grow, and then it became this thing. But it kind of got a little ridiculous when people were doing slow-mo videos of like him spraying the water, and he's like, that wasn't meant to be this like very dramatic thing. He goes, my hair when it was dry would get caught in the clip of my helmet, like where you button it in. And he said at Lambeau he'd get icicles when his hair was wet,
nice.
and I'm like, this is more information than I care to know. But
Nice.
yeah, so I typically go with short hair, but it worked for him. I mean, I don't know if you're like in finance and you show up with like a man bun, is that cool?
Yeah, no,
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
probably not
nah.
gonna work.
Just for some context on that Aaron Rodgers thing, let's take a look at the
Here we
side
go.
by
All
side.
right, so this is Aaron Rodgers. Let's take it. So that's him showing up to camp. Now
Right.
let's see Nick Cage and Con Air.
As Cameron Poe, that was his name in the movie.
Very good.
Did he do the wink though? I mean, Aaron, if he's really going to go into character, we
should
need
be.
some like.
She's right.
I mean, he kind of on him. He
He kind of nailed it.
Yeah, he did nail it.
I love this bit. I really do. I support it. I mean, I think it's kind of
Now that I know he's just pulling everybody's chain with it, I'm okay with it. But when I just saw the video, I didn't read anything about it. I just saw it. And I'm like, what in the hell is this guy doing?
Yeah.
It's not someone like poison him.
But hey, he owns it for sure.
That's the least disturbing thing that Aaron Rodgers has done in the last couple of years,
exactly.
I think. Yeah, so that's fine.
Wow. That's a look.
All right.
That's a look for sure. Maybe he's trying
He
to.
committed. I will say, if you're going to channel someone, at least look like him. So I will give him credit. I mean, not sure why, but he committed. He worked on his arms. Like,
Yeah. He definitely spray tanned too.
Did everybody know Nicolas Cage was Francis Ford Coppola's son?
I did, yeah.
I just recently found that out.
Well, he dropped the name.
Really?
Yeah,
I think it's his nephew.
Oh, you didn't know?
I think it's his nephew.
And specifically
Or his
changed
nephew,
his
I'm
name.
sorry.
Yeah,
Nephew.
specifically changed his name because he didn't want
Right.
everybody in the business to say that he rode his uncle's coattails.
But he did actually get help from his uncle and wrote his uncle's coattails. He just didn't want everyone to know about it.
Well, what was
just
funny
to be
was
clear.
he changed his name, but he told everybody that his real name was.
Yeah.
So what? I mean, it's like what? Yeah, that's a true story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you need any more
you
Nicolas
guys
Cage
are
trivia?
just full of helpful information.
No,
I
it's
learn something
it's
new
useless.
every time I join you.
But it's useless information, honestly. Like,
You know what? But
we
I'm
have all
going to
these
pull that out
tidbits
the
and-
next time I'm at a dinner party, and I'm going to say, in case anyone was wondering, Nicolas Cage, and then they're going to be like, "How do you know this?" And I'm just going to smile and go, "Don't worry about it."
Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show.
We'll let
Yeah.
you use that. We'll let you
Hey,
use that.
we have to ask you because you were on when we talked last time you were on. We talked about USC and UCLA heading to the Big Ten, and then yesterday during our program, the news broke that the Big Ten is also in talks with Cal, Stanford, Washington, and Oregon.
They have to change the name of the conference. It's just stupid.
I think just go
I know,
for 20
it's
and
so
call it the
stupid.
Big 20.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
I don't know. What do you make of all this?
This is so interesting, right? Because they have their media day, and the Big Ten Commissioner Kevin Warren says, "I'm not actively poaching people, and it has to be strategic." All right, let's call a spade a spade. Strategic means like money's the bottom line. Is this like going to make us money? Now, when you look at SC and UCLA, LA is the second biggest media market, so it's like, of course, it's going to make sense. Well, now I actually kind of feel badly for Oregon because now they're in this like kind of leftover. The top talent's gone. And now, okay, if they go, yes, exactly. It's stupid that it's called the Big Ten. You're like, at this point, it's like the Big 78 or something. But I don't know, because then if Oregon, Cal, Stanford, and Washington go, what the heck happens with like the Arizona schools, BYU, Utah, and Washington State? It's just like this. It's like the worst of the worst left. So we'll see. They said they wouldn't make an announcement until the media that contract has been dealt with in August. But what are your guys' thoughts on that? I mean, is this just like a joke now? Are we going to have
The
like
whole
3
thing's a
mega
joke. There's no
conferences?
rivalries.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't care. The rivalries don't matter to me because I didn't grow up with it. But the whole thing's stupid. They should just the SEC and the new SEC and the new Big Ten should take their 20 schools each, break away, and then just do a playoff between those two conferences.
That's where it's going.
It's not even a conference anymore. It's a whole league. I mean, it's just silly. It's silly.
And the thing is, the landscape of college football has completely changed, right?
Yes.
We have the playoff system. We have name, image, likeness. Like it's just. I'm a bit of a traditionalist, and I did like when I was at SC, we were the Pac-12. When my parents were there, it was the Pac-8. So it is kind of sad that you think there was tradition, but
They're going to be the Pac-8 again.
right? They're going backwards. Adding
What's crazy,
yeah,
Jennifer?
I mean, it's going to be a logistical issue because Kevin Warren was saying, well, we're going to have 4 time zones, and it's the first coast-to-coast conference, and I'm like, well, that means that the West Coast teams, SC and UCLA, are going to be playing some really late games.
Right.
Well, no, early games, and then people on the East Coast are going to be playing on Pacific time. I wouldn't want to be doing the scheduling or the logistics or the traveling, but I guess that's the way the landscape's going. So you have no choice whether we like it or not. It's all about the bottom line, which is dollars. And these media, the Big Ten media rights are said to be over $1 billion.
They add these teams, it's going to be even more. And the crazy thing, though, guys, is forget football. Football is once a week. What about all these other sports? Like, is the women's volleyball team going on a Tuesday from Rutgers to Stanford? I mean, it's just so stupid.
Basketball? I know you think about basketball, baseball, where you have more than a game. Yeah. And then they were trying to talk about the academics. Look, I am all for academics.
What
I was
about
valedictorian in high school. I graduated with honors. I am all for academics. But let's be honest. I'm like, when Kevin Warren is talking about academics, I'm like, or we could talk about media deal. Like, I know it's the PC thing to say, and it sounds good. We want to make sure we're going after academic powerhouses.
Yeah, but how these suits stand up there with a straight face and talk about what you just
ridiculous.
It's you know what's it's insulting. It's insulting because we know that it's not true. We know they're lying to us.
You don't care about that at all.
You know, they're trying to virtue signal that we really are about educating these kids. No, you're not. You're about making money, and you're proving that every single move you make. One thing that I think, I read this last night, one thing is this could be interesting. So you talk about how do they make this work logistically, and you brought up the 4 time zones. One of the very attractive things about this to the networks is that they would be able to, every week, schedule a West Coast game at 5 o'clock that ends up being in prime time. ABC has had a ton of success with their big Saturday primetime game. But ESPN is owned by Disney, which also owns ABC. Right. What they would love to do is be able to program 3 or 4 big primetime games on Saturday night. Put one on ESPN, one on ESPN2, one on ABC. With these big conferences, with these big markets from the West, and Stanford and Cal, I know that it's not like it is with the other markets, but it is the San Francisco market. Yeah. That's a top 5 market as well. You're programming for primetime Saturday night games. Now you have a smorgasbord of opportunity, and that's not just one big bake sale on ABC every Saturday night. You could have 3 or 4 on your network.
Yeah,
and
it's
make
all
it
about money.
Yeah,
it's all about money.
And when you look at, they have 5 games, which takes viewership up, which again goes back to the bottom line of dollars. You know, it is what it is. It's a business at the end of the day, and the whole landscape has changed. So,
but you know what? Tell us that. Call us. You know, don't insult our intelligence and still try to hide behind this crazy notion that we're all about educating our student athletes. No, you're not.
What would the trickle-down effect of this be for, like, the lesser conferences? Has anybody talked about that? What happens to, like, the Colonial League and all that?
It's going to push them into obscurity.
Like, I mean, they're already pretty obscure. But I'm saying,
they are, but even
do
more
they
so.
Combine now? Does, like, do they start to try and do this?
I don't know, because the Power 5 has really become the Power 2. Yeah. And so what ultimately happens to the UConns and to the Toledos and the Bowling Greens and all of those schools, someone at ESPN once told me, I said, why are you making these MAC schools play on Tuesday night? That's ridiculous. Because they give them a week off before it, so they don't play on Saturday. Obviously, you couldn't play on 2-day recharge. But the answer was so quick. It was like, oh, well, gamblers need to something to bet on every day of the week. Of course. So that's why we have games. So what these other schools do is say, okay, all of our games are going to be on Wednesdays. And all of our games are going to be on Thursdays. And
why don't they move those whole conferences? Should just move to the spring and have their own championship. People would watch it.
There's been talk of that before, like some of those smaller conferences. Like, what if we did play
screws it up for the NFL?
If it's the NCAA, that won't happen. But we don't know what the future of the NCAA is either, do we, Jen? I mean, who knows if that's going to be a thing 5 years from now, 10 years from now?
And really, what's transpired in college sports the last few years, I mean, I guess some people could have guessed it was going in that direction, but it's changed so much in all of our lifetimes that who knows in the next 10, 15, even 5 years, like what the next moves are. So they want to expand the college football playoff system and all that. And it'll just be interesting to see with these mega conferences, what happens. And you do kind of feel badly for I guess some people would say, well, then win and create a good product, but not everyone can be a top tier team. So you do feel badly for some of the schools like the Bowling Greens and out on the West Coast, the, Washington States and stuff, who really kind of only get viewership because they're part of another, conference, or Washington State because they're part of the Pac-12. Now it's like, well, who's going to watch them? SC and UCLA are gone in 2024. Now they're talking, Oregon, Washington, Stanford, Cal. The whole landscape, like I said, it'll be interesting. I do love college football playoffs, though.
It's funny because the sport once was just built on tradition. Everything that college football did was tradition, and now that whole foundation bedrock is blown up, and there's probably not a sport that we watch and love changing more right now than college football.
Absolutely.
Jen, have a great weekend.
Notre Dame?
Yeah, that's another good question. They're going to have to join a conference at some point.
I agree.
You're not going to be able to make it on your own. Have a great weekend, Jen. Great to see you again.
Bye, guys.
Thank you.
Bye.
Jen Matthews with us on the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show. McNuggets, you want to go right to the top 5?
We'll do top 5, then we'll talk a little Guardians, then we'll get out of here. But as always, when we do our top 5, it's brought to you by Roundstone Insurance. Roundstone offers a better alternative for affordable quality health care. For more than a decade, Roundstone Insurance has been saving small and mid-sized businesses money, an average of 20%. Yeah, 20%. Contact us today to learn how you can get great health care benefits that your employees will love and save money too.
Roundstone never forgets.
I like that.
I like that.
aggressive.
I like that. I like that.
like an
I went right at you.
Yeah. He's like, you gonna feel this.
I know,
gonna get
20%.
this.
I can say 20%. I know.
And they never forget.
Never.
You want your insurance company. Sometimes you want your insurance
Never forget.
Sometimes you want them to forget, but Roundstone never forgets.
Never. They're on top.
Okay, top 5 today. It's from Steve today.
It's a Steve
Our fearless
Becker
leader.
special.
Nice.
Yes,
Let's go.
We had such success with Coach Kyle's top 5 yesterday.
It was a
we said,
good
hey,
one.
let's give our new guest today an opportunity.
Great.
And Steve, being the ever so not pretentious guy he is, picked the 5 best Steve
Don't
athletes of all
screw
time.
this up.
Oh, top
5
Steve
best
athlete.
Top Steve athletes
Okay.
of all time.
Okay.
And I'll tell you this,
Okay,
I
I got
disagree
2
with
already.
number 1.
Hopefully he did a better job than you did with Anthony's.
Yeah.
It's
and-
better
yeah.
job than that, but I disagree with number 1.
Okay.
Okay.
right.
So I'll tell you that now. All right, let's get to number 5, though.
Okay.
Steve Nash, a 2-time NBA MVP, one
right.
of only 11 players to ever win
Started strong.
multiple MVP awards, 8-time All-Star,
Should not have been a
3-time
2-time MVP,
All
but great player.
NBA first team.
You can't argue with that now.
Yeah.
And I think he's certainly a top 5 Steve.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, where are we going from there?
I like that.
We're gonna go into your neck of the woods, Jay,
All right.
with Steve Carlton,
Ooh,
2-time
wow.
World Series champ, 4-time Cy Young Award winner, won the 1972 NL pitching triple crown, member of the 300 win club, and he made 10 All-Star teams.
Great pitcher.
And he was a total badass. I mean, this guy, they don't make him like that anymore.
Note to
Yeah.
self.
Yeah, it's
Just a little tidbit. I have a Steve Carlton rookie.
Ooh. Oh, do you really?
Oh yes.
Well, that's worth a nickel.
Yeah. Yep.
He did. I think they did sign Steve Carlton.
My mom.
I'm pretty sure you're right.
And my mom got it because he finished his career here. My
No
mom got me the
kidding.
baseball card. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Wonderful.
Shout out to
Number
her.
3, Steve.
Steve Spurrier, 2-time first-team All-American
And he did win the
quarterback at
Heisman.
Florida. He won the 1996 National Championship as the coach, won 9 Coach of the Conference awards. He won the AAF Championship in 2019. His college record, 217-79.
As a coach.
As a coach.
So was this
I thought it was
athletes?
just players.
I thought it was just players.
This is why I disagree. Look at, hey, this is the EP.
This
Not
is-
me.
This is crazy.
He did win the Heisman Trophy. However, when I think of Steve Spurrier, I do not think of him as a player.
But that means you're damn good. If you've known in your second life more than your first life, which is winning
Yeah.
the Heisman Trophy,
Yeah.
that means you're a damn good coach.
No, I have no problem with him as a coach. So if we're doing the top 5 Steve coaches of all time, he's on my list.
And he was a first-round draft pick, right?
Can we get a light on Steve for next time so he doesn't look so ominous? In the, he looks super ominous over there.
He looked like the dude that come and snatch your electricity.
Yeah.
I said final notice.
I got a quick Steve Spurrier story for you. So Steve was known as.
I love that you have a quick
I always
Steve
thought-
Spurrier story.
Well,
That was so fantastic.
He lit me up one time on national TV, so you'll
okay,
enjoy
you
this.
remember it.
His nickname was the old ball coach.
Okay.
But he was trying to change the narrative into the head ball coach. So in my intro to him, before the interview, as I'm welcoming him on the show, I said, we're thrilled to have in studio the old ball coach, Steve Spurrier. Hey, it's not the old ball coach, it's the head ball coach. And I said, I didn't know that. I've never heard that.
Right.
I've always heard you referred to as the old ball coach. And I wasn't going to argue with Steve Spurrier on TV. So he's like, no, it's the head ball coach.
What a weird thing to get sensitive about.
Well, he's clearly sensitive about the age
D-bag.
thing because he had a super bad dye job at the time.
Oh, I see.
And so he was
that's
trying to
it.
run from the age thing.
That's real
And I said,
sad.
okay, hey, look, it's your nickname.
Yeah.
Welcome the head ball coach.
But remember
to
when
the show.
I told you guys that I tried to give myself a nickname in college? I tried to get
it didn't
everybody to
go
call
well.
me Bishop.
Bishop.
And nobody
Yeah.
would.
But that was fire, though.
It was good.
But when somebody told me that, I wasn't like, no, it's Bishop. I was like, they were like, no, it's Mike. I'm like, that's fair. I tried something, it didn't work.
Well,
you know, just accept it, old Steve.
And you know what? The media didn't accept it either. Every time I never heard anybody in the media say, there he is, the head ball coach.
You can't give yourself your own nickname. It does not work.
One of the perks of being black is when you're born, they give you a nickname. You're born and you get
What's
a nickname.
yours?
Well, it's G. Bush. Everyone knows. No one knows my first name is Garrett. No one.
I guess
Yeah,
everybody
true.
knows.
Is your first name Garrett?
Yeah.
I know that. I was just kidding. Wouldn't that be funny if I didn't know?
Yeah. It can work, right?
Something
It is
every
G. Bush.
day.
You're right. It is G. Bush.
Yeah, you're G. Bush.
Okay, number 2.
This is who I would have had at number 1. Just throwing it out there. Steve Young.
Okay, I had him at number 1 on mine.
Steve Young, yeah.
So I'm trying to think now who he has at number 1.
I'll give you the honorable mentions, by the way. These are the honorable mentions. Steve, don't take this. These are honorable mentions. Steve Yzerman, Steve Largent, and Steve McNair.
See, I had Steve Largent for sure in my top 5.
Those were all good.
Steve Largent was, and Stevie Yzerman. If you're a hockey fan,
I would have left Spurrier out and put one of those guys in.
Yeah, I probably would have.
Overall, I think the list has been good. I think I know who number 1 is.
Bull, who's your guess for number 1?
My guess for number 1 is either probably Steve Smith, the wide receiver.
I was going to say Steve Smith too. No, he's saying no.
Steve Kerr.
Let's take it. Steve Kerr.
Wow.
5-time champ as a player, 4-time champ as a coach. Steve Becker obviously honors winning, and that's
Sure.
what's most important to him. And it's hard to argue with that. He is a 9-time
Steve Young
champ.
did win a Super Bowl.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
Kerr had 9 championships. Well, no,
9.
he actually was but I know that he only won one, but he was on the roster when they won others, but he was a backup, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, he has more than one ring.
And he was definitely forced in the last dance. His story was a forced story.
I think overall it's a good list. I think 4 of the 5. In my list, I would have 4 of those 5 guys.
But
Yeah,
Steve Smith got
solid
to,
list.
Yeah.
And he's our boss, so we love it. That's
Yeah.
the best list we've ever had.
Hey!
Yeah! Congratulations,
No,
boss.
Steve Young should have been number 1 for me because even though Steve Kerr won more championships, he wasn't the main guy. He was a piece.
He was a role player, but
Yeah.
and again, coach.
Hold on.
I'm thinking athlete.
You can, if you are an athlete and a coach, you could pass somebody. Steve Kerr is a Hall of Fame coach.
He is,
Yeah.
but not a Hall of Fame player.
No, I mean he's so he saved Steve Young's, yeah.
I would have liked to have seen Stephen Kwan on there, obviously. I mean, I know it's a little early.
That's a big overlook.
Little early, and then and the fact that Stone Cold Steve Austin isn't on there is a travesty. How many times did he hold the belt, Anthony?
Was the question top 5 athletes or top 5 sports people?
He's an
Athlete. I thought it was athlete.
Wrestlers are athletes.
He's
They're
an
not.
athlete.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, it's
You're
not
going to
sports.
bump out one of those old-timey pitchers, I think, personally.
Steve
but
Carlton got to go.
You
I
know?
put Austin in there.
Don't take Steve
Carlton's
Carlton
a
off.
great pitcher.
Yeah, Steve's one of the greatest pitchers of our
is-
lifetime.
Stone Cold is one
Well,
of
you
the
take
top
Spurrier
10.
out.
He would get up on the
But there were
turnstiles and
storylines.
slam
There was like a
two
lot
beers.
of his victories were written into the script.
Yeah.
And Steve Carlton had to earn every one of those 300-plus victories.
But he drank beers in public.
Yeah, he
That's
did.
hard to do. Like if Bull was able to just crack beers and pour them down his chest, that'd be a signature move.
I'm in.
It would.
I'm just
do it.
saying. You know.
I just want to say,
I like the list.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
if I put Stone Cold on the list, Bull would have ripped me. Just throwing it out there. That's not a real athlete.
No, he's an athlete. If you said top 5 sports figures and put him, then I would have ripped you because he didn't play a sport.
What I've
But
learned
he's
though
an
about
athlete.
Bull is Bull's coming after you no matter what you do in your top
I know,
five
and
list.
that's why I love Bull. It's a good back and forth.
yeah,
it is good.
Yeah, and I disagreed. I didn't like Spurrier on there. I don't
you're right.
care that Steve's the executive producer.
And
I'll
it-
rip him if necessary.
In the chat, Fry says Steven Seagal.
Oh, yeah.
Steven Seagal.
Steven Seagal.
Wait a minute. What is he?
He's a
Amazing.
crappy actor.
Amazing
No, he did
martial artist.
Taekwondo or some sort of MMA.
Kenny Miller is like they're just putting it in there. Kenny
Steven
Miller says
Seagal
Steven
is like the
Seagal.
worst actor ever.
And a terrible person.
Karate man of all time.
Yes.
Yeah, no. Not going there.
Is
Not going
karate
there.
an athlete?
He was. I mean, was he competing?
No.
He's a clown.
I'm assuming that person's kidding because
Yeah,
Steven
yeah,
Seagal is
yeah,
a
yeah,
joke and
yeah.
a psychopath too.
See,
by
they
the
didn't
way.
get that's why you explain the sarcasm.
Yeah, just letting you know. That's not a better picture. That's not a better
No.
angle. That's not a
More
better.
comments.
It's a
Bush
new
wants to
angle,
talk to the
though.
Guardians.
We've never
It
had
is
that
a new-
angle
it's a
before.
different
Now you can just see that he's
All right,
looming
can we,
over
speaking
us.
of Stephen Kwan, can we get to the Guardians now?
Sure,
let's
let's
talk
get
to the
to the
Guardians.
I'd like to
Guardians.
talk about the Guardians.
So last
for crying out loud.
night, Naylor did it again. Josh Naylor
That's
hit
son
a
of a
solo home run in the ninth. He now has 3 home runs that won games in the ninth inning or later. That leads the major leagues.
Fun to watch that happen in Boston too.
It
Wasn't
really was fun. And
the
I mean,
fans,
he
the
hit
shots
it
of the fans.
over the Green Monster and out of Fenway Park.
Yep.
He absolutely clobbered it.
Sad Boston
I love
Knights.
this guy. I've loved him all year. And then Clase, who I didn't love earlier in the year, but Bull kept telling me, I was telling you Naylor's the real deal, and you kept telling me Clase's the real deal. Last night,
we
both
got
were
it
the real
right.
deal.
Yeah.
And I have totally changed my thinking on Clase.
One of the most reliable closers in the game right now.
I'm going to say he's the best right now.
Yeah.
He is the best closer in the
maybe
game
Josh
right now.
Hader.
I don't know. I'm taking this guy because when he changes speeds with the slider he threw to a couple hitters last night, it's unhittable.
Nasty.
It's almost like Mariano's cutter.
I mean, he looks so good right now. And I'll tell you, De Los Santos has pitched really well for them.
He's done
very,
a
nice job.
Nice.
The bullpen was great because Quantrill stunk yesterday.
He didn't pitch well, no. But
and they
you know
kept
what?
blowing the lead.
They did, but they stayed in it. They didn't give up. They got the big hit in the. I think they tied it in the seventh.
Miles Straw in the
Miles Straw. And by the way, the catch that
Miles Straw.
The catch that Straw made to end the game.
Great play.
When that was hit, I thought that's a ground rule double.
You see this rapid fire baseball?
I know.
Yes,
Miles Straw. I keep your head down. Credit because I've been hard on him the last couple of weeks. He's finally come out from
the last
the dead.
like 3 weeks. His average
He was in a coma for 3.5 months.
Hitting the ball. So here's the bottom line.
Here's
the bottom line. They're 50 and 47.
Yeah.
They're a game and a half behind the Twins for first place.
Right.
And the trade deadline is 3 days away.
Tell me who they getting. Tell me who they
Bull
getting.
is the general manager of the Cleveland Guardians.
Thank you. Tell me.
Who are you calling? What deal are you making to make this team better?
My two favorite teams are a perfect match here.
I know. You've been saying this all year.
But I'm going to expand the trade. I'm going to make a blockbuster trade with the Cubs, and here's what I'm doing. All right, I'm giving them. I got to give the Cubs 4 or 5 prospects in the deal. Two guys in your top 10. You got to give up something.
Can you give us an example on that? Who would that be? Like, what are you willing to give?
I don't care.
I don't think you do because Contreras is a real.
Well, but I'm not just trading you Contreras. Here's what I'm trading you.
You want something
I'm
else.
trading you Wilson Contreras to play catcher. Now he's a rental.
Yeah.
I'm getting Ian Happ. Ian Happ was an all-star this year. He's an excellent hitter. He gets on base.
Are they shopping him?
They are.
Wow, that's surprising to me.
He's got, I think, 2 years left.
That's why I'm surprised they're shopping him.
Okay? Ian Happ's the second best outfielder available. Well, Brian Reynolds is better than Happ, but Brian Reynolds I don't think is being traded. But Happ, outside of Soto, is the best outfielder available.
Yeah.
He can play any position in the outfield, and he can play the infield if you needed him to.
Right.
He's got a great bat, and he's having his best year.
Sure.
And you'd have him under control. And in that deal, I'm getting 4 players from the Cubs. I'm filling every need with this one trade. I'm getting Contreras to catch. I'm getting Ian Happ to play the outfield. I'm getting Wade Miley, a veteran starting pitcher. He's only made 4 starts this year because he's been hurt, but he's on a rehab assignment. He's pitched well in those 4 starts. He was excellent last year for Cincinnati, and he's pitched well, like I said, this year. He's a good veteran back of the rotation starter.
How much time does he have on his deal?
It's a 1-year deal. That's it.
So
that's
he's
a rental.
Super rental too.
And then David Robertson, who's a rental also. Now,
wow. And how old is Robertson now?
He's a veteran relief pitcher. He's been the Cubs closer. He'll be a good reliever.
Right.
You add to all 4 things you need: a catcher, an outfielder, a starting pitcher, and a relief pitcher.
Yeah.
You give up. Ian Happ's worth a lot. The other guys, and Contreras is worth a decent amount, even though he's a rental.
I'm curious to see
the
what
other
you're
2 guys
giving
you're
up.
not giving up much for. I'm saying you give one of your top 5 prospects, one of the infielders, which they have a glut of. Then you give away you give another player that's in your 6 to 10, and then 2 other wild card prospects that are not huge.
See, I can't put my mind around that because
it's so big it probably will never happen.
No, that will never happen.
But that would be huge. Not to mention, those guys all have playoff experience.
No, they do, and they all make sense. But what I can't weigh that trade.
Yeah.
Because you haven't given me specific players. You say one of these guys and one of those guys.
Okay, so let's say
plug in some names.
Let's say we're trading Gabriel Arias. We're trading
hard to
like
give
Freeman's off limits.
Yeah, not Freeman.
You're not touching Freeman.
Not Espino.
Espino's off limits. Valera. All those guys are off my. They're not being moved.
You got to get one. You give up one guy from that group. That's Arias.
Okay.
All right. Then you give up maybe what's his name, the catcher, either Naylor or Lavastida. I can't remember how to pronounce his name.
Yeah. Okay.
Listen, those guys are not huge prospects. They're decent prospects, not huge. And then the other 2 guys are just, wild cards for the Cubs.
Yeah,
lower level
Rosario
prospects.
will likely be moved in my view.
Hey, listen, if you want to give up Rosario, I'm sure the Cubs would be happy to have him.
Jimenez is off limits.
Yeah, no. I'm not asking for you. I'm saying the Cubs got to get one of your top prospects.
Yeah.
I'm saying Arias, but one of them.
Okay.
And then you give one top prospect, one good prospect, and 2 wild card prospects.
So here's what I would say to that.
And you have filled every hole you have.
Here's why I would say no to that deal.
Yeah.
Two of those players, at least two of those players, are extreme rentals. They're under control.
Well,
through
three of
this
them
year.
are rent. They're all rentals except for
the reason
half.
I don't like that is because, and we talked about this a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
Before teams make big trades like this that will change the trajectory of their franchise, they always look at what's going on outside of not just their division, but in their league. And I don't see how those moves makes them better than the Yankees.
It doesn't, but...
So I don't want to give up long-term young prospects.
Well, here's the thing, okay, is you're only giving up one prospect you think is on the top of the pile. And that's it. You're getting 4 players, including one, Ian Happ, who would be your best outfielder, and you've got him for 2 years. And if you feel like you're not going to compete next year, you could always spin him off at the end of the season.
Yeah, you could.
Okay? Contreras, I mean, think about the upgrade offensively from what you've got to Contreras.
That trade is happening. Not the pieces you moved.
Yeah.
I believe that on August 1st, Contreras is a Cleveland Guardian.
I hope so.
Are you hearing that, or are you just
no?
like
I'm just
it
looking.
Just makes sense.
I'm looking at their lineup, and they're clearly they have to be a buyer because they're a game and a half out of first place. You can't just start selling pieces off.
But Contreras, even though he's a rental, is going to cost a decent amount because there's a lot of teams that need catchers, and he's an elite hitter for a catcher. Elite.
You're right, he is. But again, I just think if you're the Guardians and you're looking at the way your roster looks today, you have that is the glaring hole on your roster. I mean, it's flashing red.
Yes.
You have to upgrade that position.
But you think about it. You're right. Listen, nothing the Guardians are going to do is going to make them a better roster than the Yankees. Nothing. There's nothing they could do that would make them a better roster.
No, but
even if they got Juan Soto, they wouldn't have a better roster than the Yankees.
It has to put them in a position where they could look at that, where the front office could look at that and say, no, they're not better. But we know in baseball the best team doesn't always win. But they have to be able to look at their roster and say, you know what? I'd take Cleveland in a 7-game series against the Yankees.
I think you have to capitalize when you got a chance to capitalize. Could you foresee a young team taking a step back next year? See, it's not guaranteed the Guardians are going to come out next year and be as good as they are this year.
Oh, absolutely not.
If they come back and take a step back next year, you'd have lost all the momentum. Now people are like, well, why didn't you make a move when you were a game and a half out? And you see what happens. Roll
and
the
that's
dice.
why
I'm not saying I'm not for making a move. You got to do something.
Right.
But I just think that there are certain guys in the organization, and it's probably going to be guys that the Cubs would want for that haul, that I wouldn't be willing to part ways with yet.
Jay, they have a glut of middle infielders.
They do.
You can't keep them all.
And Jason has been saying all year, they basically used the first 90 games to figure out which of these kids they're going to spin off.
Yes. And by the way, like yesterday, the Yankees trade last night. I don't know if you guys saw this. The Yankees traded for Andrew Benintendi.
I did see that.
So they've gotten even better.
That's a great move.
By the way, they give up 2 of their top 10 prospects, and he's a free agent at the end of the year. I know it's the Yankees, but in the American League, the Yankees and Astros are the only teams that are really good. If the Guardians made a blockbuster move like that, they would close the gap. And as you know as well as anybody, in a 7-game series, if you pitch well enough, you got a shot. And
do you think our pitching is good enough right now to beat the Yankees in a 7-game series? Because I don't.
Probably not.
And the
Probably
trade
not.
And the trade that you mentioned
doesn't get their rotation.
Does not strengthen our rotation.
I mean, it does a little, but not enough.
The back end of our rotation, and as you know, in a 7-game series, you're going to see 3 arms.
Question for the baseball grown-ups. Is this the nightmare scenario for the Dolans, being just on the edge of possibly being a game and a half back? Would they rather be 6 games back or 7 games back so that they didn't have to deal with these questions, or be right up there and maybe be in the lead?
It shouldn't be. It might be because of who they are.
Yeah,
it
you're
should
right.
not be.
Yeah, no, they should be doing cartwheels.
This division
right now.
stinks.
It's
Okay,
bad.
they can win this
And
division.
now the pressure's on the ownership to spend money, which they don't want. They clearly don't want to do, and don't think they're ready to do.
This trade that I'm bringing up would cost them one elite prospect. It wouldn't cost them a ton of money. None of those Cubs players are making big money.
Yeah, and
Even
I like
Contreras.
all of the pieces that you mentioned. I like. I would like to at least look at the list that they're going to talk about giving up.
Yeah.
But this is a good problem to have, too. Andre Knott said last night during the telecast, I thought this was dead on. He's hearing more and more from around baseball, don't trade with the Guardians.
Yeah.
Of course.
Because we've taken everybody's lunch money.
Yep.
If you look at the trades that this franchise has made, Miles Straw, I still think the jury's out on that. But when you look at what they got, Class A for Corey Kluber, who made 1 start for the Texas Rangers.
Right. Yeah. And now he's mediocre in Tampa.
Well, he's not.
He
was in Texas he was a rental.
Right.
And then he immediately moved on. But when you consider that they got the best closer in the game right now, or one of.
Do you really believe that, though? The GMs are like scared.
No.
They're all
No, I don't believe
arrogant
that at all.
GMs too, and they think they can do better
I'll tell you
than
this.
anybody.
I've heard GMs have said this before. There are certain teams that I just inherently don't want to deal with.
Right.
Because I almost, not that no one's going to say they know something that I don't.
They're smarter
but
than those.
Tampa now has a track record
doubt.
of taking people's lunch.
Right.
And the Guardians, when you look at some of the trades they've made in the last 5 years, I scratch my head and say, how are they taking great prospects, giving up nothing? I know that the Frankie Lindor thing, a lot of people still wanted us to sign Frankie. We have the better player in that deal right now. He makes less than $1 million, and Frankie makes $40 million.
That's just one piece of the puzzle, though. You can take somebody's lunch, but then you got to eventually.
You got to try to win.
You got to
try to win now.
But G. Bush, you can't win if you're not taking people's lunch.
No, yes, that's true.
That's
but
correct.
the reality is, like other prospects that so many fans were afraid to trade. Right? Nobody wanted to trade Clint Frazier. What's he done? He's still in the minors.
No, I know. You're right.
Pomeranz.
And
by the way, not only is he in the minors, he's in the minors for the Cubs, who aren't even good.
I know.
Bradley Zimmer, nothing. All these guys.
I'll end up by saying this, and I can't believe I'm going to say this, but it's true. The Guardians right now have a really, it's a bad problem. I mean, they have too many prospects.
Yeah.
Their minor league system right now is one of the best in baseball. They've got so many good kids that now they have to decide which ones of these we're going to keep and we're going to hit, and which ones are we ready to move on.
And I think if you're trying to win, nobody should be untouchable. If I had to pick one guy currently in the minors I wouldn't trade, it would be Daniel Espino. He'd be the one guy I wouldn't trade.
And he hasn't pitched much this year because he's had
but
an injury.
I love his
I don't
prospects.
know who said this. I don't know. Some coach said this, but they said the word potential will get you fired.
That's right.
Yeah, well, yeah.
As Casey Stern, formerly of MLB Network, quoted, this is the best quote, prospects are cool, parades are cooler.
Yeah, well, you're absolutely right about that. I think we all agree they better do something.
Yes.
They've got 3 days.
Pat. Tuesday at 6
Especially
p.m.
yesterday. I saw the Benintendi news yesterday, and I'm like, are you kidding me?
Yep.
In fact, that's if we do final takes, that's what my final take is. But
by the way, I think the Yankees will now trade Joey Gallo. I wonder if the Guardians will be interested.
No one is interested in Joey Gallo. Trust me. He's an absolute
You know why?
bum.
You know why? Did you guys see the Joey Gallo video, the gender reveal video?
No.
I did. I'll find it. I'll pull it up. You want to hear a better
I won't even tell you what it is. Find the video. And this is why no one's interested in Joey.
You want to know a better stat than that, though? What? Aaron Judge has 38 home runs this year. Joey Gallo has 37 hits.
By the way, Joey Gallo is going to go somewhere else and play well, so somebody will be smart to trade for him. There's some guys that can't play in New York. He's one of those guys. He was excellent in Texas. He has his flaws as a player. He'll play somewhere else. Yankee fans are spoiled and arrogant.
I wouldn't be,
and don't pay any attention to when players play in other places.
I wouldn't be beating his.
Yankees are not infallible. They're going down in the playoffs. They're not winning the World Series.
Okay, are we going to do? Where do you want to go from here? Right to final.
We'll do good bad bet real quick.
Okay.
Then we'll do final takes.
All right. How did we do yesterday?
G. Bush went 3-0.
Hey!
And Bull went 2-1.
I went 3-0. What are you talking about?
No, you didn't. G. Bush went 3-0 yesterday.
Wait a second.
What did I?
Which one did I lose?
No, I went 2-1.
No, you guys didn't.
Wait a second.
No, these are wrong.
I had the Rockies game under. I won that.
Hold on, I'm pulling it up. There's a lot of emails here.
Yeah, these are
a lot of emails.
And I was definitely 2-1 because I tracked it.
Me too.
Jay, you were good on the Guardians.
Yep.
You said bad for under 9 runs.
It was over.
Oh, did I screw this up?
Yeah.
Oh, I may have totally botched this, guys. All right, well, we'll retract the records.
That's a bad job out of you, McNuggets.
It happens.
And we're not blaming Anthony for this.
No, this is
because
totally on me.
I know I went 3-0 last night.
And I definitely went 2-1.
Yeah.
And I don't
that means
think
G. Bush did not go.
No, he did not go 3-0.
See how they do
You had it for a second. They took it from you.
See how they do the brother?
You had it and they took it.
Okay, no, that makes sense.
Racial!
You was there. You was almost there, dog. You almost had it.
Yep.
G. Bush, I tried. But no, Bull, you went 3-0. Jay and G, you both went 2-1 then.
Hey, G. Bush, that's still a nice day. 2-1.
Yeah.
Remember when didn't they take back the Oscar for Moonlight or something like that one time?
Yeah,
too?
I think you're right.
Oh.
Well, they announced the wrong winner.
They announced the wrong winner.
That was awkward.
But we let
Steve Harvey once told a woman that wasn't Miss Universe that she was.
Yeah, they tried to get him.
That was awkward too. Excuse me, can I have that crown back?
Yeah, I need that back.
Still worse.
You know you wasn't. You were second best.
You got Steve Harvey, bro.
You did.
G. Bush, I apologize. Bull, Jay, I apologize.
So are these standings now going to be up to date or no? And Steve, are you taking notes of all the mistakes McNuggets is making? When's he up for review?
I have a few words. I have a
I'm
few
going to
strong
Texas.
words.
They be hating.
All right.
It's a good day to go to Texas,
All
brother.
right, let's get to today's bets. These are all correct. I just double-checked with the text.
Allegedly.
First one, Guardians getting a run and a half. First time they've been favored in the series.
Yeah.
Jay?
Yeah, I like.
G and
Well,
Jed.
the Red Sox are just not a very good team right now. Their pitching's been terrible, and
bullpen.
Tristan McKenzie's been the Guardians' best starter, so I'm going to
Yeah,
go with him.
I agree.
Yeah, I agree with that too.
I think he's due for unfortunately, he's a young kid. I think he might be due for a shake-up there, and it's hard to win 3 in a row.
What scares me about McKenzie is he's prone
gives
to
up
give
the
up the
gopher
home
ball.
run.
Yeah, yeah.
And, they're playing with a home run porch that's, 210 feet.
That's true.
Speaking of McKenzie, that's our next bet.
All right.
Over 7.5 strikeouts for Mr. Tristan McKenzie
Oh, I'm going to
today.
pick up a game on everybody. Another game on everybody there.
7.5 bull is the new 10.
Oh yeah.
Right? I mean, last year
Yeah.
guys were getting to 10 with the spin. Guys were getting to 10 strikeouts, but in the 5th and 6th inning. Now you look, and almost never is there a
Not
double-digit
happening a lot.
strikeout game.
Right.
McKenzie's strikeout game has been good. The Red Sox are a swing and miss team. I like it.
All right, next.
The last one. Little confusion on me this morning by how exactly you count bases. But over
Yeah.
2.5 total bases for Jose Ramirez.
So-
Once again, bull.
To make it clear, Jose needs a triple, a home run, or
A double and a
with
single.
or
Yeah.
3 singles.
Yeah, you're right.
Right?
Yeah.
So there you go.
I hope I'm wrong.
Yeah.
I just
Not doing that.
He's in a slump. He's due
I just
for a
was
game.
looking at his swing last night.
It's not good.
His swing is a mess.
He's not
And
good.
I'm not going to say it was the home run derby because that's too easy of an excuse.
No.
It has messed other guys' swings up, but he only had 1 round, and so it's not like he took 3 rounds of it. But his swing,
It's bad right now.
does
He's
not look the
struggling,
same at home
but
plate.
he's due. I feel like he's about
Okay.
to get hot. I think today's the day.
all right, very good.
And before we do final takes, let's take the tag board, Steve, just for a laugh real quick.
Yeah, this is great. Oh, Joey Gallo, gender reveal. Bully swung and missed. You're trading for that guy? You're trading? He screwed up the gender reveal.
Wait a second. That's not actually him, is it?
Yes, it is.
No, that can't be him.
No.
No, that's not actually Joey Gallo.
Come on, don't tell him that.
You should have
Look
gone.
at him. That doesn't look like Joey Gallo. Like,
Mike, you
He
should
was
have gone
buying
with him.
it. He
no,
was
I
buying
wasn't,
it for
but
a
you should have
second.
gone with it.
I would have.
I can't see both through this
Bro,
box.
come
He's
on,
the only
man.
person on the
This
panel
guy-
I can't
this guy
see.
got the-
I
Peter-
wasn't believing it, but
He got his ankles is not
Man,
even athletic. He
what
got
a
the Peter
loser.
loafers on.
Why would he take
by
that
the way,
chance?
couple
Yeah,
things.
right, I know.
Why would he take that chance? His son's
Or
gonna
could you
see
imagine
that.
if it was and his wife actually still tweeted it?
Oh yeah.
You know what? I wasn't going to talk about this, but because you guys put this up, I'm going to talk about this as my final take. These gender reveal things when we hit these are so stupid. This is so dumb. This guy's a dope. He swung and missed like an idiot.
And then he celebrates because he wanted
His
a boy.
wife shouldn't hug him. His wife should have divorced him right there
Yeah.
because he can't hit.
and
He's
they're having a
loser.
boy.
I know.
That's
son-
gonna be
I mean,
problematic.
His son will
My
never respect him.
gosh.
His son will never respect him.
His
I
son
mean-
will never hit.
Yep, exactly.
My
those
God.
genes.
Why do people do these stupid gender reveals? Just tell the people in your life
you remember-
it's a boy, it's a girl, whatever.
Bull, do you remember the one in West Virginia where grandma got killed?
What? No.
Grandmother got killed. They did something.
Bring up that video, Mike.
Google, Mike.
Get it on tag board.
Google gender reveal grandmother death.
Can we show a death on air?
No.
Well, I
If
don't
you want
know.
ratings, we can.
Yeah. Yeah, we probably.
Now,
Yeah,
don't
let's
show the
not.
I
dying
don't know.
lady.
Maybe we better not show
Maybe
it.
tomorrow.
I'll look for it.
But anyway,
Yes.
this is my
I'm
public
pretty sure that there was a gender reveal where a grandmother was killed.
died. Yeah, public service announcement. If you don't want your grandma to die, don't do a gender reveal, you idiots. Just nobody cares. All these other people are just pretending to care. Nobody cares. Nobody wants to see your kid. Nobody cares about your kid. You only care about your own kids, and you barely do that.
I didn't even find out the gender.
As the comedian,
I waited.
as the great comedian Jim Jeffries said about kids, kids are like cigarettes. You hold them for 5 minutes and you love them, and the other 55 minutes you figure out how they're killing you. There you go.
Wow.
That's a great line.
Fatherhood.
Yeah. Welcome to the
Not
club.
my son, but everybody else's.
Iowa. Okay, so
Iowa.
what happened, Steve? What?
66-year-old woman gets hit by
Shrapnel.
Shrapnel from a pipe bomb
Yep.
at a gender reveal.
My
Killed her.
God.
Frickin' killed her. So we're having a baby, but we're having a funeral
We just
too.
killed
So
Grandma.
it's a push. It's a push.
Hey, congratulations, you got a boy. Grandma's dead.
How do you?
We're gonna name you Eleanor after your dead grandma. She died at your gender reveal.
I've heard about one pipe bomb ever, and it's like in Oklahoma City
Yeah, it's
when that
never a
federal
good
building
thing.
went down. Who has pipe bombs like just on deck,
Yeah.
ready to
People in
go?
Iowa, I guess.
Come on, man. Come
Yeah.
on, man. It's unacceptable.
Mike?
Oh, I'm sorry, my turn. My final take. This is something I'm righting a wrong that I didn't notice until recently here. We've been here for how long doing this now? 2 years?
Weeks.
We've been here for 2 years doing this, I think. Something
Almost
like that.
3 months.
And I was not a part of the decor discussion back here. I just wasn't around during that point. I would have liked to have been consulted. A little bit rude. I'm not upset. And I actually think you guys did a really good job. But I haven't taken the time to look at each and everything, but I see a lot of good representation there. But we do have one glaring omission as the ultimate Cleveland sports show. And frankly, I'm a little upset with the Clevelanders for not picking up on this. And I'm mad at myself for not seeing it until now. I'm not mad, obviously, at the out-of-towners. I know that you're from New York, too. Although you've been here a while, you should know about this. You're forgiven. Mikey, you're from New Jersey. Anthony, I have no idea where you're from. We've never had a conversation outside of this room. And that's fine. And actually, I'm comfortable with where we're at. But the point is, the people who should know better should be the Cleveland people, and that's you guys right there.
What did we do wrong?
I'll tell you what you did wrong. You forgot a very important thing that we should have represented back here. Okay, let me explain this to you guys.
Uh-oh.
And maybe some of you guys might not know what this is.
Oh, no.
This is called a plastic pink yard flamingo, okay? And these were very popular. Do these look familiar now, guys?
Parma loves those, don't
Parma
they?
loves these.
Yeah.
And this might be weird to you out-of-towners or some of you young kids who might be watching. You might be wondering exactly why something like this happens. Where this comes from, this is a rich Cleveland tradition. These were very popular in the 1950s and 1960s, particularly in the suburbs. Once there was a bit of, everybody kind of moved out of downtown and went into the suburbs, just like for safety or something. And
gentrification.
Yeah, they started junking up their houses in a very suburban way. Now there was a horror show host on in the 1960s named Ghoulardi who liked to make fun of how cheesy suburbanites, particularly Parma people, were. And by making fun of their white socks and their lame tendencies and the fact that they had kitschy stuff like
their awnings, their window awnings,
which I still have. Thank you for mentioning that. But these, I didn't buy that. I didn't put them up.
They were on the house when you bought it.
When I got there, and they're expensive to take down. But so what we needed here was this, because this is a classic Cleveland staple, the pink flamingo.
You're right.
And this has to be somewhere. I'm not saying it has to be
Terrible
this one.
omission.
Yeah, it was, and it's embarrassing, and I apologize to everybody. It's been a feature in Cleveland ever since.
Yeah.
Parma still celebrates these now. Parma, by the way, we love you, Parma. 7th biggest city in Ohio. Did you know that? Parma is?
I didn't know
Isn't that crazy?
Great
It's a huge
pierogi.
place. And we are
and their official bird is the pink flamingo.
Yes, it is. And so somewhere tomorrow, we're going to get this situated properly. And by tomorrow, this thing's going to be a major part of the set.
That is a great
that's my final
point.
thought.
And
All
it's
right?
a huge oversight.
And we're sorry for the oversight.
By the way, do you know why they're pink?
Why is? Oh yeah, I do. Because they eat shrimp.
You know who I learned that from?
Who's that?
You.
Oh yeah. All right. I was happy.
We just did a show. A couple weeks ago at the Akron Zoo.
Yep.
And that was one of Mike's little tidbits that he.
So, anyways, this is a new part of the set. And what do you guys want to name them, viewers? Tell us what we should name this pink flamingo that's on set. Best one, we'll name it that. So good luck out there.
Albert Bell. I don't know why that just came to mind.
I don't know.
Go ahead, G. Bush.
Yeah, Albert Bell. Shout out to
You have a minute and 7 seconds.
If you are rooting for Baker Mayfield at the beginning of next year, we've excommunicated you from the Browns community. we sent you a cease and desist, and we will escort you out of your job if you continue to post that shenanigans on Twitter or Facebook or social media. We do not play with you anymore.
Fair.
On the J.
I like that because yesterday it was a hot topic from what he said to some of the fans. There was a Browns fan that
He was
had
rude.
the autograph, and
Big
I saw
shocker.
it. He, tongue-in-cheek and jokingly said, "Get that jersey out of
He
here."
threatened to kill her.
But trust me, he will use. Spread that out. Yeah, I think he did, didn't he?
Yeah.
No, he actually did. He
Yeah.
actually. No, that's not true. All right, my final take. We're out of time. We have 20 seconds left. I was going to go in on the Yankees getting Benintendi. The rich get richer, and everybody else has to watch the big markets play in October, and that sucks. We're out of time. We're taking a 22-hour break unless Deshaun Watson news breaks. If it does, we are breaking in immediately. Otherwise, we resume our regularly scheduled programming, which is actually black, until tomorrow at 11 a.m. See that? Oh, that's epic.
Creepy.
Great.
There's your buddy
He's looking
right
at
there.
you through a cat.
Right, like.